Oh, look, guys. The dance is back. Boss tried to pull himself out.
That was an interesting dance there, Shorty. I don't know if I could really call it a dance.
Yeah. Well,
looked like he was kind of doing some aerobics or something.
It's different music. It's going to take a minute to get used to it.
I like the new open. It's got a little how can I say it? It's got that, bring you in. It's almost serious. You guys, it's like, man, it's just guys taking it up to another level, man. It's all about the business. It was very very to the point.
Yeah, it was some good music. Nothing to dance to though.
No, but I'll figure it out. I can promise you that much.
No, you won't. You're gonna figure out something. I don't know if you're gonna figure out how to dance to it. You're gonna figure out something.
You won't figure it out.
Figure out how to pull you from the show.
I'll be on Dancing with the Stars because of this. I promise you that.
We should be talking football.
Got my fingers crossed. Guys, welcome to Bears Country Podcast on this wonderful Wednesday evening with our awesome guest we've been wanting to have Mr. Glynn Morgan back on the show.
Thank you guys for having me back. I appreciate it.
He has been hounding us constantly. How can I get back on the show? I'm like,
alone.
We're working on it, Glenn. We have other guests. And so we moved it to a Wednesday night because we really wanted to have you on the show again. And thank you so much for coming on with us again, Glenn. Thank you.
Truly.
No, hey guys, my pleasure. Thank you for accommodating and because on Thursdays or sometimes at the job, it's just getting those days off has been difficult. So thank you for moving things so I can be a part of this podcast again. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Sincerely, man. Thanks for being here.
It is our pleasure.
Really, thank you, Glenn. I hope you're doing well, man. I know you had a little thing going on.
Yeah, a bit of a leg thing. It's getting better. Thank you for asking. So I'm mobile. I'm doing stuff. So probably about 85-90% there. So yeah, it's getting back to business.
That's great.
Doing
getting
real good, man.
Yeah,
these guys are sitting around here probably at about 70.
Yeah, getting old sucks, man. You get a certain age, and it's just like I just fell off the precipice of a mountain. But
I'm at the beginning of that mountain.
Just ask PJ.
I'm the youngest one here, bro.
Well, you wanted to say something like 3 times. What was it?
Hey, no, I'm good. I'm just listening to you guys banter.
Before we get started, I do want to remind you guys that we are all brought to you by BetUS. Go check out BetUS.com. Every sports bettor's favorite sports book. They have a bunch of great perks as well as exceptional service. Use that link, and it's also in the description to get 125% sign-up bonus. I'm going to get this right one of these days. Place your sports bets with BetUS. And PJ?
If you bet, please bet responsibly. We're not telling you to bet, but if you do it responsibly.
I know the football season's over too, but if you bet on those other sports, that will still work for you. So we would appreciate the help at BCP here. So
Madness coming up,
yeah, there you go. I'm just excited to be doing this tonight with you, Glenn, as our guest again, because there's just so many questions that I know all of us have. Things that you might have a little bit more insight on, just as far as this whole quarterback controversy BS that's circulating the internet right now, things like that. We kind of have a little take on that too, but just first off, what's your feeling right now about what's going on in the current state of affairs for the Bears?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot's happened since the last time we talked, and a lot's happened since the season ended. Just recently, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. Justin unfollowed the Bears on Instagram, and he recently, Justin, was on the St. Brown's podcast, and it dropped today. So if everyone hasn't had a chance to listen to it, go check it out. I've gotten through some of it, not all of it just yet. But Justin kind of addressed the elephant in the room, and his response, pretty much in terms of him unfriending or unfollowing, however you want to phrase it, was that he just needed to basically check out totally. So he unfollowed not just the Bears, but also the NFL in general. It's just getting too much. And I can't blame him. You know,
we actually have a clip of that. We have a clip of that. You want to play that right now, Walt?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
What's with the unfollow with the Bears? What's up with that?
Man, bro, I'm glad we're talking about it because why do people take social media so serious? Like,
but like, why you unfollowing the Bears?
This and that. Like, I still mess with the Bears, this and that. I'm just trying to take a little break. I unfollowed the Bears and the NFL, bro. I'm not just trying to have football on my timeline. It's something that I don't want to see in my timeline. I'm about to go on vacation. I don't want to see no football. And guess what?
Just get a little away from
every Bears post. It's either
let's see who you follow.
Let's see who follows. See the draft Caleb. So it's like, bro, man, I'm tired of hearing the talk. We want
like it's annoying.
We want Caleb. Like, it's just, bro, like, it's time.
Do you want to stay in Chicago or what's up?
Yeah, of course I want to stay. To be honest, bro, I'll be trying to, like, you know, with all the talk, it's hard to, you know, I guess kind of just be in one place, but I can't see myself playing in another place. But I know how that league is. Like, EQ, was probably the same way before you left Green Bay. But I mean, if it was up to me, I would want to stay in Chicago. I love the city. The city's lit. The fans there, you know, they're great, and the people. But it's a business. I ain't got no control over it. So whatever happens, happens. But I feel like the biggest thing with all this going on right now, I just want it to be over. Like, just let me know if I'm getting traded. Let me know if I'm staying, this and that. Because I like watching film in the offseason. I like watching the offense. You feel me? Seeing what they're going to do a lot and stuff like that. So.
That's how I feel about my ex-wife. I just want it to be over.
I was just reading Mr. Mayhem in chat saying, I believe in JF1.
Yeah. I think a lot of us do. I think if you, again, I'm not saying or really elucidating anything and making it something that people haven't already heard or aware of, but more times, from what I've come across, athletes, current professional athletes, and those that have been recently retired from the NFL, as well as a lot of fans, really think that the Bears should stick with Justin and that you've got something building and going forward with that, and that whatever the perceived haul might be by trading down, go for that because you can, you know, there's so many more options it affords you. National media pundits and local pundits and local reporters and other media people, it seems like it's almost like a reverse. It's like if it's 80-20 athletes and fans, and it seems like it's 80-20 the other way for media people. So it's really weird, and the arguments can go both ways. And if you're really, not you, but anybody, if the person's being really objective, the more you think about it, it does kind of become a difficult equation to factor in. For some people, it's a lot easier. For some people, it's very much what they've seen Justin do on the field. And regardless of the difficulties, environmentally speaking, that Justin has been immersed in over the last several seasons, it's the things that he can be in control of that they're really referring to. Justin's propensity to not really target in the middle of the field as much. He's uncomfortable throwing in the middle of the field. That's a thing. Holding on to the ball, that's a thing. Ball security, that's been a thing. And those are reasonable, you know. Now for me, I'm like, he's 24, and those things are coachable and correctable. Some people feel those things aren't, especially the reading of the field and the disseminating of the ball where he needs to. Some people believe that what you see is not going to get much better. And if you have an opportunity, because it's the number one pick, why not go for a player who seems to not have that be an issue? So, okay, that's being fair. Conversely, when it comes to Caleb, it's an unknown. Putting the generational tag on him is not fair to Caleb. Can't miss prospect, probably a little bit better, but generational is like a notch higher. And then you follow it with Mahomes comparisons. Again, not fair. A lot of people expect a quarterback to solve all the problems that are there, which maybe a quarterback can 3, 4, 5 years into the league with the same system, similar, same continuity of the team, but not a rookie coming out. That's you don't expect that. And I know CJ Stroud doesn't help any because of the success that Houston had. But again, when you start getting into the nuances, there's more to it than just CJ being a really good quarterback. There are other things that help him be able to elevate his game and those players around him. But these are the things that, become an issue. So if you look at Caleb and you compare him and Justin, there are a lot of similarities. They both hold on to the ball. They both go for big plays. They both have ball security issues. But where they differ, I will say that Caleb is a lot more creative. Justin has a bit of rigidity to his game. And I think some of that is when you start really delving into to them as people, their personalities. Justin is an extremely disciplined athlete. He has been so pretty much his whole life. Obviously, I would say a lot of that comes from his home, father being a police officer, mother being an educator. That's discipline. Justin has also spoken about his faith, which also leads to another sense of an aspect of being disciplined. Justin talks in this podcast about he's no longer vegan, but he's pescatarian. I mean, that's very, very, very specific in terms of your diet.
Oh.
And I know I can't speak to that. That's a whole level of discipline that a lot of us don't necessarily have. So with that discipline, I think Justin was reluctant at times to go against some of the coaching that he had, that he was tending to follow and listen to that. Sometimes Justin himself alluded to that, making him seem a little bit robotic. But I think Justin being a very disciplined person, sometimes that in of itself added some rigidity. He's very oriented to listening to the authoritarian people that are providing that direction or whatever the narrative might be in terms of what they need to do for that particular game. Conversely, Caleb is a bit more of a free spirit. He's a lot more charismatic. He's more into social media, more activities. So Justin just shut it down. Caleb's not shutting it down. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So you get out on the field and you're more freewheeling, more of a, I don't want to say devil may care attitude, but more of a like, F it, let's go. And this is what I'm going to do. And that plays out in his game. And you see some of their personalities come out. So, does that make one better than the other? I don't know. But I can see where you've dealt with one, the other might seem a bit more enticing to you. And the other being Caleb in this instance.
Drop the mic.
Real quick, guys.
That was so eloquently, perfectly said.
Here, let me holler at the chat real fast. Cliff Victoria, Doug Van Dorn, Mr. Shorty, Mr. Mayhem, Vernon, James Ford, PZ, Glenn Morgan, all you guys in the chat. Thank you. Mike Jameson. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We're going to be asking Glenn here a lot of questions, but if you guys have some questions for him, please join us in the chat and ask the questions.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Man, what you said was so perfectly said in every aspect. You just summed up everything all the way down to the nook and cranny, like him mowing his lawn in the dark after going out after a game. Is because he had to mow the lawn, but he mowed it in the dark, kind of a thing. That discipline and the rigidity and everything else and the structure. You nailed it.
Well, I mean, it speaks to his character. I mean, it speaks to who Justin is. So when Justin hearing these things from his coaches, he's trying to do it. And that's when he blurts out that saying, hey, it's too much coaching, because he's trying to process everything that's being told to him. And I can imagine it's in your ear and you can't talk back, and you hear all this in your ear as you trying to get your next play in. I can imagine how that can be tough.
And you can kind of tell, like his first year into the league, he played a bit more freewheeling, so to speak. The athlete that we're familiar with, but more so the youth, the exuberance of being in the league and trying to set the world on fire. I remember after his first preseason game, he's like, "Hey, this seems a little bit." He spoke way ahead. I didn't realize that the NFL is a lot more difficult than that. But that was the youth speaking. That
Right.
was the brashness of youth, which is fantastic. Initially. But then, the reality of reality set in, and
The NFL cut the receipt on that one, and they were like,
Right.
"Oh, it's a little too, it wasn't fast enough for you." Okay.
But then it seemed like some things were coached out of him, or some of that freewheeling, some of that that lack of just constraint seemed to go away, and he became more constrained. And it's like you're trying to do what everyone's asking you to do. And as how do you say, when you try to please too many people, you're not pleasing anybody.
True.
And then the main person lost in that was Justin. I think he began to realize that a little bit last season when he again made the statement that he walked back right afterwards. But that was some truth, that was some candidness coming out. Not to say that he's negative or he's being disingenuous. It was just it kind of seeped out. You had to almost pull it out of them, and so that was the case. So yeah, I mean, and that's a way of looking at things, but it's so much more involved. So much more involved than that, and where the Bears are choosing to go, I from the intel that I've gathered from other people and other conversations, it's looking like the Bears are leaning towards Caleb.
Oh no!
Yeah.
See, that's well.
The decision hasn't been made yet.
Leaked. That could be put out there just for others to think. You know, I mean, they need the rest of the league to think that. That's important. That makes the pick that much more valuable, does it not?
Well, yeah, but also Kevin Warren saying what he said about Justin makes Justin more valuable.
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is trading Justin now you're upping Justin's trade value. Because you're getting this wonderful human being, you're getting this great guy, you're getting this character person, a guy who just needs to be in a better situation, a new environment. It could be right for you. He could be had at this price of a second round pick and a fourth round pick, So yeah, you can again. It's so weird because you can look at almost anything that's been done since the end of the season, and it could be one way or the other. Hiring Shane Waldron, you can look at it as well. I hate to say a person's a reclamation prospect, but just to say in terms of Geno Smith's career being revived, you can look at that and say, hey, he was able to get Geno back to being, the player that was taken out of West Virginia, maybe even a little bit more so, and blah, blah, blah. If he did that for Geno, who's older when he did that, why not with a person who's 24, who's much more malleable than with Justin, not set in his ways as much? Here's the opportunity. So, or you can say the Bears got Waldron because they convinced Waldron, we'll give you a piece of clay to mold at your own, and Caleb Williams, So who am I thinking? You can look at the quarterbacks coach, Joseph, that was hired. It's like, okay, well, he's a dual threat quarterback. Well, that works for both quarterbacks, whether it's Caleb or Justin. It's really hard to tell which way they're going.
Yeah, it is.
So it is difficult. So, I'm wrapping my mind. Now, if you were to ask me a month ago, I'm 90% plus why the Bears need to do the trade down. I can give you 17 reasons why without a problem, and feel very good about all those reasons and argue anyone live long day. That being said, you have to be realistic and also look at it the other way. Like, okay, if the Bears do go with Caleb, what does that look like? And how does that work? Because if there's anyone outside of Justin who's pretty much been screwed by the situation and the environment, it's been the head coach, Eberflus. I mean, Eberflus has been taking it. I mean, he's been asked to fall on the sword. He's been asked to take it in the side. Other areas, it's just like this dude has been, it's been unfair. It really has been unfair to him. Even as much, if not more so than Justin, because there is so much as a head coach that you're responsible for. And some of it was no fault of his own. I mean, I just recently had a conversation where someone saying, well, having Alan Williams, that's Eberflus's fault. I'm like, how is what a person does my fault?
Right.
Look, if it's my fault if he's not doing this job on the football field, and I hired him thinking that he could, but if he's doing something off the field behind closed doors or wherever he's doing what he's doing that gets him fired by HR, come on.
Yeah. How are you supposed to know that about that private part of a person? Nobody would know that.
Right. Not unless I'm having those conversations with him, and that's a whole different level.
Right.
It was both anyways, Glynn. He wasn't doing the job on the field, apparently. I mean, the defense got better after he left shortly thereafter.
Well, it's not necessarily, because they didn't have much to work with the year before. So how am I putting that on anybody? I mean,
it's true.
The year before, if you think about 2022, as soon as Eberflus gets there, Khalil's gone before they start. Roquan, who's your best, probably one of the best top 10 players in the league, and definitely your best player, is gone after week 7. And then for shits and giggles, you have Quinn go. He only set the Bears all-time single season sack record, and he's gone. It's like, who do you have? So you had no one on defense. So it's hard to really say that they weren't doing their job on defense and had much to work with. And then he gets fired before they begin the season. And on top of that, you think you're going to get a 3 technique, and Jalen Carter is set up there perfectly for you. And you trade down because all the red flags, and then he falls to 9, and you're like, oh my God, we can still get him. And it's not as much pressure on us because he's not the first. Wait, you traded him? What? We didn't. You're not gonna talk about this? No. 4th round pick. Okay, wait. Not even 4th round pick for this year. You talk about next year. It's so a guy that drives the perfect person, specimen, athlete, talent to drive what you need for your engine or for that 4-3 defense that he runs. You don't get, and you have no edge rushers that you draft. And you don't pick up one until the season almost begins. And then you lose your DC right before the season begins. So now you've got to flip all your attention. I mean, that was a lot. And he basically pulled off a minor miracle. I mean, there were a lot of ups and downs. I'm not saying he didn't make any mistakes, but you pulled that. I mean, that plane was, you're like, going down. And the nose is going. And you pull it up. As you pull it up, there's this mountain right there. You're just like, holy, you try to get
Yep.
And you pick up from the nosedive, and a defense that was on its way to being historically bad rights itself enough to where it's a top 10 defense and ends up being number 1 against the run. So that's a minor miracle. And now you come into this next season, you're like, okay, I've got some stuff. You're going to draft a quarterback? I get a rookie quarterback? Are you trying to get me fired? Are you trying to ruin my life?
Rookie quarterbacks win Super Bowls, right?
And it's not to say that a rookie quarterback can't be successful or even take a team to the playoffs. And we've seen it when Flacco and Ryan both were drafted as rookies in their first year. But those situations were a little bit different. The Ravens weren't a horrible team. Flacco was a mid-first round pick. And although Ryan was a high pick, the Falcons were only bad because they had recently lost Michael Vick. The team was still pretty much intact outside of just losing their quarterback. So they went to pretty decent teams. And again, we see Stroud last year as well. So it's not unheard of. It's not unprecedented that a rookie can get you there. But we all know, as Bear fans, everyone here on this panel, everyone listening to us, the Bears have more than just a hole at quarterback. And Justin was the least of our problem, really.
Right.
There are a lot more issues. And I think that's where some of the divide comes, where people like myself feel like, hey, trade down. You're never going to quite get an opportunity to amass picks, not just for this year, but for next year. And you can build and be like the Steelers and the Packers and, all these other teams that are good for decades. Let's not just be good for a few years. Let's actually be good for the rest of this decade into the next decade going forward. That's the goal that you would like to have overall, but it's really attainable. And you can do it a little more quickly now because you do have this number 1 pick that is becoming so valuable.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. As far as what are you hearing? If there was a trade down, what would the Bears get if they traded down with just Washington? Are you hearing any specifics?
Is that worth the first in their second and our second back, a first next year, and swapping?
Once again, Shorty, I'm sorry, say again.
If Washington did trade with the Bears and swap picks, would that be worth the first pick next year and the Montez Sweat pick of ours back plus their second?
I don't know if you get our pick back per se, but I think you'd have another second round pick. Maybe you can get their second round pick. I think at the very least you should be able to get their, the second round pick from a second round pick from this year, maybe even the third from this year, or second and a fourth from this year, but also next year's first, and maybe next year's first and maybe third, or if you can talk them to a first and a second. But I don't know if that's going to be enough to walk the Bears off of Caleb Williams. And I had to double check on this, but I believe on draft night itself, you can go into the next year, an additional year, I should say. So instead of just picks for this year in 2025, you can also access picks from 2026. But I think you have to wait until draft night to do that. So let's say if that's the case and you're holding on, for maybe you had these previous talks and you have this agreement with, let's say it's Washington. Maybe if you're going to agree to a trade with Washington, maybe that involves this year's swap of first, next year's first, and then 2026 first. If we're talking that and so other subsequent picks, that would be a significant haul, because if you think about it, Washington probably isn't going to be a playoff caliber team, and it's a tough division for them to do that in anyway. Washington might find themselves drafting in the top 10, and conversely, that would be you drafting in the top 10. So that would be good, and then maybe even the next year it could be another top 10 or top 15, so a top 10. So that's where, but Washington is close, and so you don't necessarily believe that Washington is going to offer that much, because they can just wait and take the other quarterback, whether it's Drake May or whether it's Jaden Daniels, or maybe they feel good about somebody else. I doubt if it goes beyond those two other quarterbacks. So now you look at New England, if they want to make that deal, Atlanta looks like a really good trade partner potentially, the picks that they can offer. And further down, the more those teams have to offer to you, whether it's draft picks and or players. But yeah, right now, if anyone is offering you to the Bears, I don't think you're getting too many strong feelings. You're going to have to wait until some of the tagging is done, and I would imagine right after the combine to really get an idea of where some of these other players may position themselves. I'm not saying that the combine is not the end all to be all, but it does help you kind of get an idea of who's where and how long you could potentially wait before I start giving away picks and realizing that I could have just waited and got this player later on.
Right.
Do you see a scenario? And this is my last one before I let the other guys ask their questions. Do you see a scenario with Washington where, let's say, the Bears ask for their first this year, of course, their first next year, their 2 seconds this year, and a player like Jonathan Allen?
I don't think Washington would. If I'm Washington, I don't come off of that. Not what I can draft another. I can draft May or Jaden Daniels. If I'm Washington, that's too much.
That's too much.
Yeah, and then if I think that's a bit much. Okay. Because you're not leaving me much to. I've got now. You're putting me in a hole to have to build from. I'm missing my top 3 picks for this year and one of my better defensive players and leader, and a pick next year. And I'm putting a lot. And where am I getting compensation to have enough capital to build my team itself? I'm offering too much. I mean, that's a bit much.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say if I'm Washington, I wouldn't do that. And unless you're giving me something else back, right?
DeMarcus Walker?
Yeah, something else back.
I have like 5 things I want to say, but it's Foster's turn. You're muted, buddy. He's like, oh, I forgot I muted myself.
I did. I was listening, man. I'm Tooch. Tooch from the Barroom Network does it every time. He did it the other day twice. I want to go back to, when we're bringing in these coaches, Waldron and all these guys that we just hired, all the coaches. I was gonna keep it to offense, but what is Poles? What are Poles and Eberflus or even Warren telling these coaches when we're interviewing? Because that's what I want to know, because how do they make this decision? They have to have some indication, or something has to be brought to their attention about what's going to happen with this offense.
Yeah, I think sometimes, and first off, I don't know what they're saying to them, so I'm going to speculate like most everybody else.
Come on, give us the inside info.
But I would say that clearly, the quarterback situation is the thing they talk about the most. But it's not just the quarterbacks. You got to realize, not just you, but all of us need to realize that it's not just a quarterback that has to learn the system. The whole team has to learn the system. So what is the answer to that? When you're having an interview, how do you from the Bears, how do you, Shane, how are you going to teach? How are you going to develop? We have these players, because it's not just Justin they're talking about. They're talking about, these are receivers. Tyler Scott, how are you going to develop him? We have Braxton Jones and we have Darnell Wright, 2 young left tackles. What can you do? You did a good job with the 2 young left tackles you have in Seattle. What about what you did there is translatable here? So there are other players that you're talking about. And so it's more than just a quarterback that they have to be convinced of. And with that, I believe with Shane, why does Shane take the job? Well, it's Chicago. You're going to get probably a bit more attention than you would in Seattle. It gives you an opportunity, if it is Caleb, to mold someone young and show what you can do, with that, when you've got fresh clay in your hands, what you can do, along with some of the other players.
Because he did win a Super Bowl with one of the only other 6-foot quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl, right? Did he win a Super Bowl with them at the time?
I'm not certain if he was with Russell at that time. I don't believe he was an offensive coordinator. I think he had Russell, like maybe Russell's last year in Seattle. Yeah, he's only been with the Seahawks for, I believe, 3 years. So no, I wouldn't say he was with them during that. But again, that's 3 different quarterbacks that we've seen Shane Waldron have to deal with in Seattle, with Russell, Geno, and also Drew Lock. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for Waldron to have somebody that's not already prescribed too, of someone that doesn't already have their warts. It's someone that you can come in and not have to deal with unlearning them something and to teach them what you need them to do. You can kind of, like I said, again, have that fresh clay to mold. And it's not just him, it's also the staff. So if you're Washington, why do you become the DC for a head coach who proved that he was a better DC than he was a head coach, at least in last year? Well, it gives you an opportunity to bounce from being that to maybe being a head coach. It gives you a better opportunity because that defense had success, and now any success that the defense has, you're going to be aligned and attached to that as well. So if you're watching, it's like, hey, I came in and I refined this, and I helped because a lot of my past has been as a defensive line coach. I came in and helped develop Javon, Dexter, and Pickens. So these guys became better 3 technique or better defensive interior linemen and blah, blah, blah. And the sacks total went up since when I got there. All these things, everyone is leveraging their situations for themselves. So as much as the quarterback, or as much as the Bears were interviewing these coaches, I'm sure the coaches are interviewing the organization as well too. So they're finding ways where they can leverage it for themselves. So, everybody's got an agenda, and it's not a bad thing. That's what makes the wheel roll forward.
I have PTSD from myself thinking that, Luka Nogetsi, I should say, he's going to get a head coaching job. We're going to lose him in 2 years because he's going to blow up this offense with Justin. So it could happen with Waldron, but again, if that did happen, that would suck because now Justin would be, unless they get it right where they can promote someone that knows the offense and they're just, they're doing a Green Bay thing per se, where they're getting it right now. They're just promoting the next guy.
Yeah, you said Justin. Who says it's Justin? It might be Caleb.
I honestly don't think it's going to be Caleb. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. And I think that the best situation for this team, and you've kind of said it already, is it's the picks.
Logic doesn't always factor into things. Sometimes ego factors into things.
If the Steelers want, there went my camera again. If the Steelers wanted Justin Fields, would they give us the 20th pick in this first round for him?
No, God, no. And
okay,
if they did, as a Bears fan, you should take it. No, Justin's not going to garner a first round pick from anybody, and he shouldn't. I mean,
but they wouldn't get anybody better at 20 there, than Justin, and no matter what draft.
That's you as a Bear fan saying that. As a GM for the Steelers and trying to keep my job.
That is me as a Bears fan, but it's me as a Bears fan being a Bears fan for so many years going, I would definitely take that quarterback with our 20th pick. It's worth it for me to put him on our team to see what happens. That's my thinking,
Right, and I love you for it as a Bear fan, but as a GM and my job's on the line and my credibility throughout the rest of the league and my ability to get another job, should I move on from here? There's no way in hell I'm giving up a first-round pick for a player who ostensibly has a 10-28 record, hasn't thrown for 300 yards, hasn't thrown for 3,000 yards, has a turnover ratio of 1-to-1, has ball security issues, and has blah, 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 blah. That all those things right there are bringing his value down. To get a second-round pick, trust me, that would be good. To get anywhere from, I don't know, say 38 to 50, 55 would be really great. And to get another pick after that would be awesome too.
Glenn last time?
I'm sorry, say again?
Glenn never got pulled from the show before, right? I think we talked about it like after the show, like, man, I wanted to pull you that one time.
Yeah, you can't pull Glynn now. He's the man.
Here, let me make an argument for Caleb for you. Let me help you pull me off. I'll make an argument for Caleb for you. Because again, I'm trying to wrap my mind. I'm like, okay, I have to divest myself of all the things that I think you should keep Justin for, and I'll go to that in a moment too. But for Caleb, we're making the argument for Caleb. It's like, because it's not just Caleb, but I also have to convince Eberflus this is a good deal too. Because if I'm Eberflus, I'm like, what are you trying to do? Like I said earlier, you're trying to get me fired here. So to keep Eberflus from losing his shit, what I do if I'm Poles, because keep in mind, where did Poles come from? Kansas City, right?
Right.
And what did he see happen at Kansas City? Mahomes was drafted and he sat the entire season, right?
Right.
Okay. So there's going to be some things that you saw that were successful wherever you're at that you may try to recreate in some form of fashion, or you gleaned from as a way to go about, progressing your own way. You're going to put your own stuff to it, but there's going to be a foundational aspect that you bring to part of your decision making. And so with that being said, you've already brought Shane Waldron over, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Right. And who has Shane tutored over the last couple of years besides Geno Smith at quarterback?
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock. And what is Drew Lock this year? Free agent. You bring Drew Lock over, you sign Drew Lock as your free agent, and he helps you not just with, in terms of until Caleb is ready, but also with the rest of the offense. Because again, keep in mind, it's not just the quarterback that has to learn the systems, the whole team. And you have a coach on the field and a quarterback, someone who knows the system, and if you remember, Locke looked pretty good. He looked better this year than he did the year before in terms of backing up Geno when he came in. So you bring him in, he plays for whether it's 8 games or whether it's majority of the season, whatever it is, until Caleb is ready. But in the meantime, you're still competitive as an organization. You're still competitive as a football team. And the rest of the team is learning at the process, because the team is going to be learning at the same pace as Caleb. And they're only going to be as successful as Caleb is, as quickly as he learns and is able to help everyone else be in the same spot. But if I have a quarterback who knows where everybody needs to be, those guys can learn a little bit more quickly and a little more seamlessly than if we have some hiccups because we have a young quarterback. Not to mention that the Bears still have a center's issue. So if their center is a rookie center, you don't want a rookie center and a rookie quarterback. That's going to be issues with your protection. So if you have a rookie center, but you have a veteran quarterback, that's a little bit better. And that quarterback helps that rookie center as well. So in my opinion, making the Caleb move means you're going to you're going to acquire a free agent quarterback who's going to be able to help you. I can't see anyone better. And then not only that, but Drew Lock is a young guy. He's not, he's not an older dude. So he has something for himself to prove to the rest of the NFL league, like, hey, I can run a team, I can run an organization. Maybe look at me like you looked at Baker Mayfield. I need an opportunity somewhere else, but here I know how to run this type of offense. And then there's that tree that everyone belongs to. So maybe he goes to an offense that's a part of that tree. So wherever it's a benefit for Locke. It helps Eberflus keep his sanity. The team doesn't fall apart as they're learning things. Caleb learns as he's sitting. You don't have to worry about Justin being in the locker room and being divisive. So Justin's doing his own thing, having his success elsewhere. To me, that makes it a little bit more sensible if you're going to go the Caleb route. That's how I make sense of it. That's how I can actually sleep at night thinking about it. Now, is that what I want to have happen? No. But that's how I can see them making it work.
I'm grinning from ear to ear because I have to just do this because my brain always goes the opposite direction. What if they decide that they brought in Shane Waldron? He was like, I love Tyson Bagent. We're going to trade Fields.
Okay, enough of that.
Oh my God. This guy. Oh, right.
Walt was waiting for the moment.
Oh, man. I was going to say I was kidding, but, it's
No.
I wanted to laugh about it. So, yeah.
If I can respond to Doug Van Dorn, I just saw his comment to the side. The difference between Dalton and Drew Lock it's a big difference. I mean, Dalton is an older player, going a bit past his prime. He wasn't a Nagy guy. He wasn't someone that necessarily knew Nagy's system. He was a veteran quarterback, and you relied on his veteran experience as a quarterback to kind of sift through things. I think with Locke, you're getting someone who is coming in not just to be the bridge, but also to help the other players learn that system, and they can be a lot better as a team going forward, learning it more quickly together, having someone captain the ship who understands where it needs to go. That I think is the bigger difference between having someone like Drew Lock come in and someone like Andy Dalton.
It is kind of similar.
Glennon never plays for the Bears again. We're fine.
Hold on a second. Walt's talking.
No, I'm just saying his comment is the situation is eerily similar to the Andy Dalton situation in a sense. I mean, Andy Dalton, you're still bringing in a secondary quarterback to train a young kid, right? So you bring in Drew Lock.
Yeah, that's not too dissimilar from a lot of people in the league. I would say you get more of that in the league than you don't. We just are paying. We're more hyper aware of it now because we're in this situation. But I think bringing the Dalton thing was a little different in the sense that he didn't really know Nagy's system. Bringing Waldron in as someone who knows. I mean, bringing in Drew Lock as someone who knows Waldron's system. That's a bigger difference in that regard because it's like you're not just you, but all the other players are being able to acclimate a little more quickly because he can get everyone on the same page much more quickly. Dalton was kind of trying to, keep his career going. I think his agendas were a little bit different. And not that it was a bad thing. It's just that, it wasn't so much about, it was like learn how to be a pro under Dalton. Here under Drew Lock, it would be not just that, but also learn this system. And this is how this system works. Again, I think more like Mahomes coming to a situation where he's behind Alex Smith, where he knows the system and he's learning it because Alex had been there for a couple of years already. So think make that comparison more so than the Andy Dalton thing. Plus, you'll feel a lot better because Andy Dalton thing will just get you all upset again.
Well, no. My one major concern is we've kind of touched on this before is actually the fan base itself. We saw what happened in spring training, or not spring training, but preseason with Justin, where they're really pounding the table to get Justin on the field from day one. And I know Matt Nagy had other ideas with that. And
right.
I mean, are we going to, if we use the number one pick to take Caleb Williams, is there going to be some sort of either fan base or media backlash to kind of pressure the Bears into repeating the situation? Because that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah, no.
Wait, before you answer that,
I'm not even going to get into that. I have zero thought.
If anyone lets the media or the fans pressure them into something, then I don't want them as decision makers for the organization. And here's the thing, Caleb is if he's taken, he'd be the first pick. And there's already enough pressure just by being the first pick. And you're coming into a cauldron that's been swirling with the whole Caleb Justin thing. And a popular player would have been let go. On top of the fact that you have this thing put on him to where he's been, kind of christened, generational talent and Mahomes comparison. I want to do everything I can to alleviate that pressure on my first pick overall. And I want to ease him into the situation. And part of that is having someone, a quarterback that can kind of bridge it a little bit. And it's okay with that because, again, if you want to make the Mahomes comparison, we saw how well that worked out for him. And our neighbors to the north, we saw it work with Aaron Rodgers. We saw it work with Jordan Love. I'm not advocating that he'll sit for 3 years, but to sit for some time when he's coming into a situation like this, that's a lot. And not only that, but you have a team that's more prone to want to. And here's the thing, Caleb could come in and be, let's say he is taken, and let's say he comes in and he's like this, and he beats him out. Hey, Russell Wilson beat out the guy that was ahead of him when he came in for Seattle. So it's not like that can't happen either. What I'm saying is getting someone like Drew Lock, just you give yourself a bit of a buffer. You give yourself a chance, so you alleviate the pressure off of that young man so he can have some time to acclimate to the pros, acclimate to what is necessary to be successful in this system. You give the team an opportunity to still win. You've got veterans on here like, look, dude, I didn't just come here as a free agent to just, flounder for a couple of years, or, hey, look, man, I'm in my 3rd year on this team. I want to, get another contract. You get other people's livelihoods in your hands as well. And not to mention the head coach who's like, are you doing this to me again? So my suggestion is something to kind of help be that glue or that buffer until this can really get to where it needs to go. Because otherwise, you are putting a lot on the quarterback. You are putting a lot on everybody having to hit the ball rolling because the expectations are now that you make the playoffs.
All right, Glynn. Seeing as though you told us the benefits or the argument for getting Caleb, give us the argument for keeping Justin. I gotta hear it, bro.
Yeah, well, my argument for keeping Justin is manifold. I mean, there's a lot.
Give it to us.
Well, all right. I'm assuming for those of us who are homeowners out there, when you're a homeowner, the benefits when it comes to tax time is you get some of that refund, right?
Right.
If you're renting an apartment, you're not getting anything back. Okay. Right. If you're a homeowner, you also have an opportunity where you can sell your property. If you're renting, you can't sell what you're renting.
I love this guy.
Same thing when it comes to the Bears and it comes to free agency and when it comes to drafting your players. If you're drafting your players, let's say you trade down, okay, and you get a haul, whatever that haul might be. Let's just say it's enough to where you're going to have maybe 5 to 6 picks in the top 100. So you're talking first round to third round type talent. And keep in mind, when the Bears made the trade with Trubisky, when they moved up to get Trubisky, they gave up a third round pick to turn into Fred Warner for the 49ers. And he's one of the best linebackers in the league. So getting a third round pick doesn't mean that you're getting bad talent. That just means that you're getting a preponderance of talent, so to speak, if you have more than just 1 pick or 2 picks or 3 picks in the first 100. So getting back to my point, you trade down, and let's say you're able to acquire, right now the Bears have the 1st, 9th, and the 75th. They have 3 picks in the first 100. Let's say you get 2 more picks or 3 more picks, so anywhere from 5 to 6 picks in the first 100, okay? That gives you an opportunity to draft players that are going to be on 4-year contracts. You know when their contract's going to come to an end. It also gives you an opportunity, if you're Pace, to double draft positions, which he's already done. He's shown the propensity to doing that. He did that when he double drafted. When he first got here, he got 2 guys for the same unit. And both the cornerback and the safety, they drafted Brisker and man from Washington.
Both tackles last year.
Last year, 2 interior defensive tackles. Exactly. Also, don't forget 2 cornerbacks last year, Stevenson and Smith. So if you do that, more draft picks, what does that do? That gives you a greater margin for error. You don't necessarily have to hit on all players because it's impossible to believe you're going to hit on every single draft pick. It just doesn't happen. Okay. So it gives you an opportunity to marginalize any mistakes you may make. It gives you an ability to have a lot of talent. And keep in mind, it's not just for this year. If you're making the trade down, you're getting picks for this year and probably 2025 as well. Okay. So now you're drafting anywhere from 10 to 12 players in the top 100 for subsequent years. If those players are good enough to where you want to extend them and they don't want to agree to a contract, you could trade them before the 4th year gets there. Okay. And we're talking about not so much the first round guys. I'm talking pretty much second round on down. Or if it gets to a point where the contract runs out and you still are unable to sign them, you get a compensatory pick. So you get compensated, just like as if you were buying a house and then you got you got some money back on the refund. Okay. When the tax time came around.
Right.
So on top of that, you're keeping your costs down low. If you basically every year, by the time you finish signing on your rookies, you're going to be anywhere from 15 to maybe 20, $22 million. That's for your whole draft. If you get a free agent like T. Higgins, he's probably, that one person alone is going to be over $20 million. And once that free agent's contract is done, you don't get compensated for that. That's it. That's all. Hopefully you did something within that time. And most free agent contracts are like about 3 years, maybe 4 years if you're lucky, but usually about 3 years. So I'm looking at it gives you an opportunity to build depth and you can be compensated so you can continue going forward, even if you're unable to retain everybody, but you're building a culture as well. Because if you find out that some of these players you've drafted are core players, you can re-sign them. And it sends a signal and a message to the team. On top of all that, if Justin is a person that's kept, you're not paying him big money this year or next year. But over the 2 years, you've done this by keeping your costs low and not investing in free agents. You'll have money to be able to sign Justin. And
plus keep a franchise if you need it.
If you need to, you can franchise. But keep in mind, too, whatever money you don't spend in the cap, you can roll a percentage of that over each year. So you can start putting money aside knowing that you're going to have to pay Justin. And so it's not going to hurt you as much. And so I just look at it as it gives you an opportunity for you to really build your team and to have depth, quality depth, and an opportunity to whether you're trading players that you've drafted or you're getting compensatory picks because of them. Not to mention, if you look at the Bears staff, look how many people of color are on the staff now. And just recently hired a female as part of one of the running backs coach. So once those individuals move on, if they move on from the Bears, you get compensated. And Ian Cummings, at some point, he's going to move out on his own, and then that's 2 years of compensation that you're getting. So the Bears are doing things, if people are paying attention to, you can really build something. But that's my argument for trading down. And whether or not Justin ever gets you to the Super Bowl, because there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. I mean, Buffalo's been close. You can't get there. The Bengals got there, can't stay there. The Ravens are doing really well up until a point. I mean, it's not easy to get there, okay? And you look at teams, basically it comes down to a question of, are you going to build around the player or are you going to develop the structure to where you can put a player in, whether it's this 5 years or next 5 years. You look at San Francisco, it's structure over player. Even when Mahomes got to Kansas City, that structure was in place already. He was just a cherry on top.
Yeah.
So that's my argument for trading down.
Man, you just
Oh, I love that argument, by the way.
gotta make a drop the mic little thing, because damn, you're killing it. You were killing it tonight, Glenn. Let's get to some questions from chat for you, actually, because it's just this is awesome. You got some questions there? Mike Jameson says, can you speak to JF1 in the fourth quarter letdowns and not enough comebacks? Is it the QB or is it truly the coaching and players around the QB? I see Super Bowls won by the QB making the plays.
If the answer to your question is yes, yes to all those things. It's circumstantial. I mean, yeah, the fourth quarter letdowns are not all on Justin by any stretch of the means. Those were team letdowns. Now, you looked at a Denver game and everyone says, well, he shouldn't have fumbled the ball. Okay, well, if they converted 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, he's not in that situation. And the play that had Justin with his back to the defense as he turned around. As soon as he turned around, before he could say, holy shit, he was getting hit and he fumbled the ball. So that's putting a player in a position that, it's not conducive to anyone's success. And that was a collective I'd say more coaching than player affected situation when they lost to Denver. That was the one game that they had no business losing at all. I mean, really, they were killing them, and then they let the foot off the gas pedal, and then they made bad decisions down the line, so on and so forth. The Detroit game, again, let the foot off the gas. That was Justin's. I think it was Justin's first game back from the injury, or second game back from the injury, and he played really well, and they should have won that game. And he was throwing good passes. He was actually challenging the middle of the field. He threw a touchdown pass down the seam. I mean, everything was really looking good, and you lost the game with 5 minutes left to go, and you had almost a double-digit lead with 5 minutes left, and you lost the game. I mean, that's, again, a coaching break. In the Cleveland game, man, Tunyon, please, are you killing me? Catch the ball, dude. You can't throw a better pass.
You go back to last year. How many comeback wins were rejected? The Steelers game. There was 3 goal line drives against the Commanders, 2 against the Packers. There was the Smith-Marset fumble. There was, so he was doing it last year. It was just to what you were kind of saying earlier. He was trying his best to, follow what, his mentality of following what the coaches want him to do. And he changed his game. It wasn't the same.
Yeah, and I'm not going to absolve Justin of everything. I'm not saying none of it was his fault, or by fault, I should say, there weren't things that he could have done better. Certainly, every athlete, every person who's competing would be like, man. Even in my bowling league, I'm like, man, dude, I pick up that spare in the 3rd frame. We're not worried about it in the 10th frame. Yeah, okay, we all can do better, no doubt. But those are some epic collapses that they had, and in those 3 wins, I mean, in the fourth quarter. You're talking about a situation where the Bears had a 90% chance or better to win those games, and they lost them. That's not on Justin, and that's not just on the players. That's on the coaches, the players, and Justin. It's a collective loss. So, how much different is that narrative if the Bears are 10-7? Mm-hmm. Are we still trying to get rid of Justin if it's the first pick? I mean, some people will still say, yeah. Some people see Caleb as an upgrade. So it's the fourth quarter comebacks. We put something on it, but keep in mind, everybody, this team was still learning how to be a team last year. They were still learning how to win. And sometimes you're going to have some bad losses. I mean, the Detroit Lions were a playoff caliber team. Detroit Lions won the division. The Detroit Lions were kicking the shit out of the 49ers. And the Detroit Lions completely lost that game. And they lost their shit, and they lost that game. Yeah. And that's a playoff caliber team. That's an epic collapse. We've seen the Atlanta Falcons have an epic collapse in the Super Bowl. No business losing that Super Bowl. We've seen the 49ers do things where, again, 2 Super Bowls, 10-point lead, same team, same guy, and they still lose. Yeah. So, I mean, these collapses happen. They're not indicative per se of how good or how bad you are. It can be, but sometimes it's indicative of where you are as a team. And the Bears had a complete deconstructed situation in 2022. Last year was the first year of a rebuild. And subsequently, you're learning how to play. You're learning how to win. And it was difficult. It wasn't easy. And you faced adversity along the way. You didn't have a team that was deep. You had issues with your coach being let go, the running backs coach, your defensive coordinator was let go. You had injuries on the offensive line. You had receivers who were still having issues getting open and catching and passes. You still had Justin with an injury in mid-season. I mean, you had things. It's no small violin here. It's NFL. Everyone has issues, but there's context to this. And so with that, to answer your question, the one that was asked, I think at some point, it's when do we invest in our players? When do we spend the time to learn how to do these things? Because the Bears started to seem like they were learning how to win those games. And Justin did come back and have a fourth quarter win against a very tough Minnesota defense that was blitzing the hell out of them most of the game.
Better after the injury.
Yeah,
Really
they did hold on against Detroit the second time around. They did look good against bad teams, which that's the first step. You beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You beat the Cardinals, you beat the Falcons. And as bad as they played against Green Bay needed to win that game to get to the playoffs. The Bears only lost by 7 points, and that's with an interior offensive line that was just garbage that game.
And no JJ that game.
There you go. So I'm just saying, those are things that not to hyper focus on fourth quarter comebacks or letdowns as much as ask yourself, why did those things happen? And had those things begun to change? And if so, where does that mean the team is, where they were, and where they're going?
Well said. What's the next question, Walt? Glenn's thoughts on Joe Alt, JPJ.
Yeah, like him a lot too.
Bears may need to decide between the two of them if they trade or don't trade the 9th pick.
Yeah, I think with the 9th pick, you're not going to take that on JPJ. I think if the Bears take Caleb with the 9th pick, I believe if you're going to acquire someone like Jackson Powers Johnson at center, you're going to have to probably behoove you to trade down and maybe somewhere between 18 and 25. And then maybe you're able to acquire him, and maybe a second-round pick gets you that second wide receiver that you need. Maybe someone like Troy Franklin falls in the second round. Xavier Legette may be there. You may even, some other guys, you never know. It's really funny. Someone like Keon Coleman, who I really like, who I could see going to Tampa Bay, especially with Mike Evans probably not being re-signed. You don't know. Keon Coleman might slide a little bit. And so now you got a guy who's 6'4", with who's your wingspan that is available for you. Or, there's so many wide receivers in this draft class. You can definitely get one in the second round. But I think if you want to get Jackson, you want to get JPJ, somewhere between 18 and 25 makes a lot more sense. And there's still the edge rusher that you need as well. So maybe you get your edge rusher in the second round, or maybe you get your edge rusher at somewhere between 18 and 25. And then maybe in the second round, you get your wide receiver and you pick 75 on Cedric Van Pran as a center from Georgia, or maybe Zach Frazier from West Virginia. So yeah, as far as Joe Alt goes, I don't believe the Bears necessarily need to draft a left tackle in the first round. I think Braxton got better as the season wore on, less penalties. I think you have a very athletic tackle tandem with both Braxton and Darnell Wright. And I think Braxton's just going to continue to get better. So I think if you do get if they do that, I can live with it, and Braxton becomes your swing tackle. But I think there's some other areas that are much more, they need to be addressed a little bit more poignantly. And the second wide receiver, an edge rusher, and a center are positions I think you really need to get within those first 100 picks.
So with the edge rusher, which way do you see the Bears addressing it overall, whether free agency or the draft or even both?
I think they go through the draft because you've got Montez Sweat. I don't think you need to necessarily spend money, because here's the thing: when you spend money on a wide receiver or an edge rusher or quarterback, you're spending some top dollar. Left tackle, you're going to spend some money. You're spending upwards 18, 20 million going forward. So if you get a rookie, again, you get a rookie on a rookie contract. We like to say that so much when it comes to the quarterback, but you get it with the edge rusher too. You have someone that doesn't have all the pressure on them because Montez is that force multiplier, as people like to say. And the interior of the defensive line has gotten a little bit better. And so this young man is probably going to see single coverage. And if he's a first round pick, he should be able to to win and not lose as much, and learn how to win. And he's learning from a veteran as well. So I like Liatu Latu. I think in a 4-3 scheme, he really fits. He's got the size, 6'4", 260 to 265 pounds. He's got a really good first step. Is more of an anticipatory first step. He's got real good hand movement. He's able to counter very well, whether it's a spin move, whether it's a swim move. His favorite move, he swats at your hands as he gets around you, and he uses that to kind of propel him past. But his bendability is really good, so he can dip in. So his swat and dip is really good. But the NFL is going to see that. But he's really good at countering already. And so I think someone like him comes in ready to play. So I really like his ability. I think he proved over the last 2 years playing at UCLA that neck injury he had, the serious neck injury he had when he was at Washington. Right. And he's a bit more healthy and beyond that. But that's always going to be a bit of concern. But I think he's shown very well, being the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, that he is a player that stood up to the physicality of what that position requires. And also he's pretty decent against the run. His athleticism allows him to string out plays, so he's pretty good at the point of attack and not getting beat on the end as much. And his tackle for losses really show. I think he had over 20 tackles for losses. Really shows his ability to make a difference behind the back in the backfield, and that's what you really kind of want, especially from that edge position over there. Jared Verse, I'm not as big on him, but he's not as bendy to me. He's a little stiff compared to Leatu to me, but he is strong. His upper part of his his upper torso, his strength there is really good. His bull rush is good. He is quick. He does have some burst as well, so I like him, especially when it comes to point of attack. I think he can hold up a little bit better at times against the run, as long as he doesn't overcommit. I think sometimes he overcommits and gets himself out to play, but that comes with coaching. Dallas Turner is really nice. I see Dallas Turner more in a 3-4, kind of the elephant position, kind of like how you saw Derek Thomas back in the day. I think he can be more utilized a little bit more, so we get more out of him from that. But there's some other guys. Braylon Trice is another guy that you can get in the later first round if the Bears do trade down that ninth pick. They do trade down. Get someone like Braylon Trice out of Washington, another guy with size, 260, 6'4", the kind of guy you can put there. He doesn't quite have the burst, but his power to speed is pretty good as well. So yeah, man, there's some edge rushers. Chop Robinson, I like him. I mean, if you talk about athlete, that guy, I mean, his burst. I mean, just you got to make sure that Ferrari stays healthy. But yeah, I like Chop Robinson too. So there's some really good guys you can get that'll be there late first round, maybe even into the second round if the Bears can acquire a second round pick.
Now, I have a close friend of mine, Triple R. He wanted me to ask you the question about Chase Young. He wanted to know what would be the Chase Young, the defensive end.
Wait, a close friend
I'm too old to be chasing young girls, man. I'm too old to be chasing young girls, man. I don't.
Yeah, I don't want you to chase them now. No, I don't want you to do that. But, what price tag do you think he would come in free agency?
Oh, here we go.
I'm not even interested, bro.
You're not
even interested. I think that he's a name. He's a name at this point. And Chase, too many times where you see the motor isn't always running. I think Chase likes the prospect of being in the pros, but I don't know if he's as dedicated to being a pro.
Don't worry, I've got my finger on the remove button for PJ. Go ahead, keep going.
As you would want for a free agent pickup. And if I'm spending money on you, I need to know, that you're going to be that guy consistently. And he's inconsistent with his effort. And that's you can't have that. You don't want to introduce that into a culture that you're trying to create. And it's cool that he and Montez were teammates. I understand all that, and I can see where there's some synergy in that respect. But, I mean, look, you're on the other side of Bosa, and I didn't hear Chase Young make too much of a difference with the 49ers. If you can't eat with Chase Young and Hargrove in the middle and the other Armstead, and you still can't eat. And not only that, but you were at a really good defensive line with Payne and Allen and Montez Sweat, and you still didn't do as much as you should have done. And you're the number 2 pick overall. No, thank you. I'm good.
His rep the last 5 or 6 weeks.
I'm sorry. Say again.
I just said the 49ers cut his reps, and he was not the starter in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read all that.
Yeah, there's a lot of red flags there. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a good player. He's not going to be the primary focus of my free agent pickups. He's a depth piece at this point.
A good one, though.
Potentially. Athletic. I mean, he's young.
What would you pay him?
I wouldn't go past 12
8?
million.
Oh, 12.
And
Thank you. You answered my question, Glenn. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The only
That's-
thing I'd be
Put it
doing
up
is-
for you, PJ.
I'm sorry, say again,
PJ
Foster?
will take anything he can get when it comes to Chase Young, Glenn.
Yeah,
Anything he can get, dude.
but
He'll
I
take
think
he'll take a bag of pre-chewed sandwiches and a wedgie.
some of that is because of the NLPA. You know, some of that's union stuff. You know, there's a certain point that and he's still living off being a second round pick. He's still in his first contract, I believe, right? So,
Yes.
so yeah, it gets a little messy. It's no thank you. I'm good.
After the show, Glenn, you and I are gonna have a conversation.
I didn't mean to knock on your fam like that, man. But yeah,
That's all right, man. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
Don't worry, Glenn. I'll take you out of the conversation, man. You don't have to deal with that shit.
That's why we should have just pulled him, because it was like me going, well, what if Shane Walden really wants Tyson Bagent?
Back to where we started.
Yeah.
Not on the same level.
Oh man. Oh, that's funny. That's fun stuff. So what's the next? We're into the next question from chat. Can Waldron meet with Fields at all before the start of the season?
Yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't be able to.
Because you would think he'd be learning the playbook by now, right?
Fields is still on the team. Waldron's hired, so I don't think there's any rules against that. I don't definitively know, but I don't see why that would be an issue per se. But
he would technically be handed the playbook by now, wouldn't he?
maybe again, I don't want to misspeak and say that because I'm not certain what the rules may be. If there are rules against that, if you have to wait until a certain time or so, I would tend to think that why would there be an issue since he's hired? It's not like there's a prospect of being hired.
I didn't think coaches could meet with players before
Free agency is done.
No, before the
Start of the new year.
OTAs.
That could be the case, but the question was, you have to meet with me to get me the playbook. You know what I mean? Yeah. We don't necessarily have to meet. You can just have me the playbook. I mean, I work for the Bears, so I don't know. That's a good question. Great question. Sorry, I don't have the answer for you.
That is a good question because I can't even find it. All my answers come up with Madden. Nothing to do with.
Yeah, I'll look into that. So hopefully, if anyone ever asks me that question again, I'll have a better answer for you. But
Fields was
start of the league year with the draft on draft day.
Yeah, the players can be in the building now, lifting and whatever, I think. But I don't think coaches can meet with them on the field to where they're actually teaching them or coaching them. I think that's what the rule
but
is.
meet could be just, I meet with you and I talk to you.
Yeah.
That the question is, can Waldron meet with Fields at all before the start of the season? I would venture to say you probably can meet with him. Now, to what extent, the meeting involves what that activity involves and the specifics behind that. I mean, maybe that can be questioned and debated, but I would think, just meeting, the coach shouldn't be that big a deal.
I would think that giving anyone the playbook at this point in the year would be against their own.
If they're not going to be on the team, they can work against
right.
them.
Yeah. So that you have to wait till the calendar year or whatever when you sign your new players.
That makes sense.
You draft your new players, you give them the playbook and so on and so forth, right? Because that would make sense to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe it's after the draft happens, because a lot of times you'll see the draft, the player drafted he'll meet with the player, he'll meet with the coach, like he'll get a playbook and then they're off and running. So maybe it's after maybe after the draft or maybe sometime after the initial free agency has died down. There could be a date, maybe it's April 1st or something like that. I don't know. April Fools. I don't know. So, But yeah, I agree that it's more we think about it. Yeah, if to give Fields a playbook now would be counterproductive if he's not going to be on a team, and then now your secrets are out there. So
Yeah.
Right.
so, yeah.
So before we get to the next question, my question is
Mhm.
the likelihood and what would it cost if the Bears were to go after Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, Kyle Pitts thing is a little interesting because he and Justin are the same year, and so you're talking, you're dealing with that option year again, and what sense does it make unless you're going to be committed to him. Now, if you make a trade with Atlanta and part of that trade involves Kyle Pitts, maybe you're not going to pay the tight end as much as you would a quarterback, and to have a move tight end like him and commit together gives you some flexibility and viability with your offense. And Pitts being a year removed from the injury might be a little more, a little quicker than he was last year, and so on and so forth. But what it would cost.
Third,
To get him, yeah, I could see you probably giving a third, but I don't know that you need to do that. If you're getting Kyle Pitts, there's some tight ends in this draft that you can get because your main tight end is Kmet already. So you don't necessarily need a premier tight end. You might need another tight end that's as good as Kmet, or maybe a tick less experience with some upside. So someone like Stennett from, I think even Clay Harbor talked about that. A guy from Kansas State's really good. I like Bell out of Florida State. He's kind of a bit of an H-back, but he's still, a good move tight end. There does seem to be a need for a second tight end, definitely.
what about Stover?
Stover's not bad. I like him out of Ohio State. Yeah, I like him a lot too. So I don't really feel the need to have to spend high draft capital on Pitts at this point. I think there's some other tight ends that can be serviceable, and you're not spending as much. Yeah, the whole thing with free agency money is, spend. At some point, you got to be careful because you may overspend a little bit. For agency, you tend to spend a little bit more, because you're paying for experience and services already rendered. You're paying for that, but you got to be careful. I mean, Nate Davis, I'm not blaming him, but a lot of people are unhappy with him and the money that was spent on him. But now, you're stuck with it for the next couple of years, But I think he'll have a bounce back year. I think last year were circumstances that just were unusual.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you go for someone like Pitts, it's more high profile. If you swing and miss with that one, it looks, like Claypool all over again. Not for different reasons, but the swing and the miss being the same thing.
I completely understand, and none of that even is any of concern with me with Nate Davis and what happened in his personal life. It's the fact that when you put Tevin Jenkins next to him, you could literally tell everyone you were running a power right, and they could not stop it. And that is the reason for me that was a mistake in signing him, because you already have the guy. Go get a left guard in the draft. If he can't play left guard, as far as I'm concerned, the best right guard is him next to our new right tackle. So
well, keep in mind. I apologize for cutting you off.
I was done.
Don't.
Keep in mind that Nate, not only did Nate have to deal with the family situation, but he was in between a revolving door at center and a rookie right tackle. He missed training camp because of the situation. So psychologically, he had to deal with that. And then physically, he's dealing with a new team, new teammates, and he's not in the football shape to begin with. And then throughout the season, because at one point throughout the season, for a nice stretch, he was looking like the guy you signed. And then he had to deal with some injury issues towards the end of the year. So, and the revolving door again at center. So, that was one guy who was put in a situation that was, difficult to continue. His career didn't say he was that player. That season was a bad season. I'll chalk it up to, everything could go wrong, possibly went wrong, kind of a Murphy's Law season. So I look for him to have a bounce back this year. If this year he doesn't look any better, then yeah, it was a bad free agent pickup.
Fair enough. I can agree with that. We have another question. Glynn, what if Bears draft Caleb? What's the realistic expectations on how long it will take for them to make the playoffs?
Right. I realistically, conservatively, I would say next year, but challenge it for this year. But then again, that's if Caleb, is starting. If there's not a veteran that's starting ahead of them, that may, factor into the wins and losses. Or if Caleb is that guy and he starts right away. I mean, the Bears have a last place schedule. The Bears defense is a lot better than it was last year. They're going to start off, they should start, hit the ground running, so to speak, be better, more fortified, understand their roles a lot more so than they did last year starting out. And that gives you more opportunities. The defense gets the ball back. We saw how well they were at picking off passes last year. They improved their pressures from the previous season. In 2022, I think it was around 83 to 85 pressures. They had 14 picks. This past year, they had over 100 pressures, and they had, I think, 18 to 20 picks, somewhere up there. They definitely improved on interceptions. So I see the Bears creating more turnovers, getting more opportunities, and that can help a young quarterback. The line, if healthy, should be better. If you get another wide receiver, you get some help on offense. I can see you challenge. I mean, keep in mind, as bad as things were last year, and they were bad, horrible start, offensive coordinator issues
the year before.
Yeah, there's so many things, and the Bears basically only got blown out of one game, and that was a Kansas City game. They were pretty much in every other game and should have won 3. So as bad as they were, they could have easily been 10-7. And I would venture to say they won't be that bad again. And I can see them winning. I can see the floor being somewhere between 9 and 10 wins with an upside of 11. Bears go 11-6. But again, that's being optimistic Bear fan. We don't know who's even going to be drafted yet, who's going to be on the team.
Man.
But to answer the question, with Caleb, realistically,
really,
you win anywhere from 9 to 10 games, I think.
I am never predicting 11-6 again, Glenn. This is year in a row.
To go, to keep the stability going there, that'd be a good idea to, keep Justin and keep the boat of going afloat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yeah, continuity wise, I'm all for that, and I agree with you. Continuity, consistency. I think I said that when I first met you guys, that's the key, in my opinion, for a team to win an NFL. But that being said, sometimes making a change also helps in ways that you didn't necessarily expect.
Every time I start liking Glenn, he goes back the other way. Come on, Glenn.
No, I'm not trying to straddle the fence. It's like, okay, I sometimes I have to get out of my own way of what I want.
I hear you.
What was possible.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Justin, Caleb is the great unknown. You just don't. We don't know.
I agree. I agree with that.
So I'm looking at.
History is against him, though.
Say again.
History is against him.
Potentially. There's some precedent. It's not like it's 100% against him.
The first pick in the draft, quarterbacks are not historically like their numbers are not better as them being great as opposed to being a bust. And 6-foot quarterbacks. I mean, we know he's 6'1", but come on, let's see what happens after the combine. He could be 6 foot and 1/8, and they call him 6'1" at USC. He's really going to be 6 foot in the NFL. And if you have 6'3", 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tackles and 6'4" guards and centers, what's that going to do? You need the throwing lanes. If they're not there, it's not going to work. And historically, it hasn't.
Drew Brees.
Well, he's an exception, but he knows where the throwing lanes are at. You can also make the exception with Russell
Wilson.
Russell Wilson, thank you. Won a Super Bowl. But he's exceptional. Bryce Young is proving that's difficult for him.
Here's the thing. Here's a fly in the ointment to what you're saying. And again, I know at some point you're going to throw me off.
Get your fingers ready, guys.
And you're saying history with the first pick overall kind of guys, right?
Quarterbacks, yes.
Right. But historically, what first pick has found themselves in a situation like the Bears, where your team is not horrible, your team's on the upswing. So that's a different situation. So you have to take everything into context, not just. But
Damn
Pass,
you, Glynn.
pass isn't always
Here with DJ.
prologue.
Yeah, I got you.
You know, and I get you. Here's the thing. I know I'm being a bit of devil's advocate on today's show, but it's
That's
like,
Shorty's job, man.
Yeah, that's why I love it. We need that.
but that's we kind of do have to conceive of the possibility and what this may look like. And so how can this succeed? If we're Bear fans, we want it to succeed. So as a Bear fan, I'm trying to see how can this work? How can this succeed if we go this route? And yes, I would prefer my quarterback to be 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". I prefer my quarterbacks to be 215, 220 with 4.3, 4.4 speed with like rocket arm. Justin, But that being said, I prefer my quarterbacks to be able to challenge the middle of the field, throw on time, to throw with more consistency,
Anticipation,
all those things.
plant your
too.
foot, throw the ball. Yeah,
All those things as well. So, what are we saying here? And so, where is the upgrade? Is the upgrade in the passing acumen? If that's the case, then you really have to consider that. Is the upgrade
in 3 inches less in height? I don't know. It's
passing lanes. That there are things that he does where he can create his own passing lanes. We've seen him scramble. We've seen him do that. And as he becomes a better pro, maybe he scrambles a little bit less, and he's more like Drew Brees, to where his anticipation is at a better rate.
There's something to be said for learning, and everyone learns at their own job, and to give up on someone so quickly, considering what that person has been through, no matter what walk of life, no matter what job, to fire someone after 3 years and 2 offensive coordinators, that's kind of silly. So I'm seriously myself. I feel like they're going to keep Justin, and I think that they should for so many reasons that you've mentioned. And I just love that you're challenging our thoughts on this, because it's awesome. It's in a very excellently and eloquently spoken way with respect. It's wonderful.
Thank you for saying that. I'm reading some of the comments to the side where people say not devil's advocate, Satan, and someone else had mentioned about Joe Burrow being a number one. Joe Burrow didn't come into a great situation. He came into skill wise, it was advantageous because Joe Mixon was there, and T. Higgins and Boyd were also.
But then he got his receiver, so I mean.
Well, I mean, I'm saying skill-wise, it was advantageous, but his first year, they were struggling and they weren't doing well. And then he got injured and didn't finish the season. Right. And then they got chased the next year, and the offensive line was still kind of crappy, exactly, but the defense was that much better. They had some free agent pickups, and some of the guys they drafted, started to play well. The defense was really, really showed itself to be a lot better than people expected. But when you have 3 wide receivers of the ilk of Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, with Mixon also being a not only good runner, but also a pass catcher out the backfield, they were able to do damage. Obviously got within this close to winning a Super Bowl. But again, the depth isn't there. The offensive line was still bad. And once again, Joe staying healthy has been a problem. Now, Browning showed to be pretty decent. I think he completed about 70% of his passes, which was phenomenal. But that doesn't mean you're getting wins, which is my whole argument with the people saying Justin never threw for 300 yards. I'm like, look, dude, I care about wins. I don't care if
he threw for 300 yards though.
Okay. I mean, it's argumentatively, he's yet to throw for 3,000 yards. Some people think that's what your quarterback needs to do.
No, he did throw for 300 yards though.
Yeah, but he's not doing it consistently. I mean, right. It's like he's not a quarterback who throws for 300-yard games. Now, his total scrimmage yards probably add up to that, so on and so forth. But he's a better runner than he is. All these things that people say, it's like, yeah, but you really need to look at the context. And when you look at what Justin did, actually, once he finally got some talent, i.e., DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, both of those guys had career years last year, and that. And Justin's completion percentage to them was extremely high. His quarterback rating to them was completely high, and it completely went the other way with all the other players on the team. And their drop rate was really bad for all the other players, whereas for Cole and DJ it was very high. So conventional wisdom or argumentative wisdom would say, hey, get him another wide receiver, whether you can finagle Marvin Harrison Jr. or Dunze, or I don't want Neighbors because we have him on the team already. That's DJ Moore. I don't like two of the same type at receiver. I want difference, different type of difference makers and play size and playability size. But whoever it might be, it can be Xavier Legette. You get in the second round if they get a second round pick, whatever it is. Another talented receiver. Yeah, hell, if it's Brock Bowers, I really love him. If you can't get a Dunze or Neighbors, but you're there at 9 and Brock Bowers is there, I'm having a hard time passing on him because that guy.
Wait, whoa. So Brock Bowers is how different than Kyle Pitts?
Well,
not in his fourth year.
Exactly.
You're not running into the same situation where you got to pay two guys. If you keep Justin, then you got to play Justin and Kyle. You got to make that decision. So do you franchise Pitts? Do you really want to pay him that much? I mean, what has Pitts actually done in the league so far? And I'm not blaming him. It's a lot of that the quarterback stoned him and the injury has gone into that. Brock Bowers, I'm not dealing with that. I'm dealing with a guy who's a better blocker than Kyle Pitts. I'm dealing with a guy that I can put in line or I can split out or I can put in the backfield. I'm dealing with a guy who is more physical than Kyle Pitts. I'm dealing with a guy who runs routes as well, if not better in some aspects than Kyle Pitts. He's not as fast as Kyle Pitts, but he's not slow.
Right. And you put him on that first year, that first round pick contract too.
Yeah, that as well. You add on to that. I mean, to me, Brock Bowers reminds me a little bit of Jeremy Shockey and Mark Bavaro in some respects. He's got that, but I think even more versatile because you can split him out as a split end. I mean, you can do the same thing with Kyle Pitts as well. I'm just saying Brock Bowers gives you a certain physicality that makes it more difficult to know if I'm running or passing. Kyle Pitts, I'm going to defer to, okay, he's not going to really block. And if I'm a linebacker, I can get past. Brock Bowers, now I got to think about it. if I'm a linebacker, because he can put me in my ass and then still go out and catch a pass.
So what's the likelihood that the Bears could bring back or will bring back Mooney?
Man, that's a really great question. And I'm okay with moving on from Mooney. I think there are other receivers that you can get in this draft that can give you what he's giving you or gave you this past year. And again, he's coming off of an injury. He didn't have a great year, and it's maybe not all his fault. Here's the thing with Getsy. The problem I had with him, it wasn't just Justin. A lot of people on that offense, a lot of players on the offense seemed like they didn't know what was going on. Like they were running routes not quite the way. I mean, Cole Kmet a lot of times, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, where are you going? Like, are you blocking? Like, why are you on the backside why are you on the heels of your own blockers? It's just there was confusion that went beyond just, a quarterback picking up where he needs to deliver the pass. So, and the underdevelopment of a lot of the players. I don't think any of those players really developed under Getsy. I mean, Moore is a finished product already. And Cole Kmet, he'd been in the league a little bit longer, and he and Justin had a connection. So that fed into itself. But everybody else, the skill-wise, nobody developed. Even the running backs, as good as the running game was, you didn't see them really go beyond what there wasn't a great sense of development there.
To the point you're like wondering about, like, is Roschon going to take another step next year?
Yeah, right? I mean, sure. I think with the different now that you got this coaching staff in place, I think you'll see development. And I think this thing with Shane Waldron that I do like, players developed under him, whether they were veteran players or rookie players. You saw Smith and Jigba had a pretty decent season. The left tackles, Lucas, and I forget the other tackle's name, out of Ole Miss.
Is it Brown or something?
No. I apologize, but both tackles were young and they developed underneath him. Kenneth Walker, also another running back who developed, and even the rookie out of UCLA, who was the backup to Kenneth Walker, he did pretty good for Seattle as well. So you're seeing players develop, you're seeing them do things and progress. Guys were lost. I mean, Tyler Scott, he got some opportunities, but there were times where it's like, okay, well, if he's not stepping up at this big moment, maybe because he needs to have the little moments to get that confidence developed so he's ready for the big moment. Tunyon, a guy who was a veteran, came in, had that wide open pass. It's like, well, it sounds crappy, but even though he's a pro, maybe he's not used to catching the ball.
Well, he come from Green Bay with Getsy.
I understand that, but I'm saying in terms of how he was utilized, if I'm not catching a ball, like if I don't go bowling, I keep reference bowling. Like if I don't go bowling for like when my leg issue, I missed bowling for about 2 months, right? And I've been bowling my whole life. I go bowling, dude. I'm like, dude, I'm struggling. I can't get a strike. I'm hoping I can pick up the 5 pin. It's in the middle, and I might not be able to hit it. You
A
know,
little discombobulated.
yeah, I mean, you're out of rhythm, you're out of sync. And
Yep.
Tanya dropping that ball, it's like, how do you? That was the easiest pass in the world, but tracking it, catching it, being comfortable catching it, even though you're a vested veteran and you've caught passes from one of the best quarterbacks in the league, you weren't catching passes from this guy all season for the most part. And so when that moment arose, you weren't really ready for it. And to me, it's just the utilization. Sometimes you need to be utilized to get that rhythm, to get that feel. And Getsy misutilized players. You know, you're running. How was it for what 3 or 4 weeks before we saw Foreman get into play, and then he starts playing. He's tearing it up. It's like, well, where else this guy? Why weren't they utilizing him?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, as soon as he came in, then all of a sudden you didn't see him anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, or you saw him on 4th and 1. Okay, guy hasn't played all day. Throw him in there. He's played in 2 weeks. 4th and 1. Save our season. You know, he gets caught in the backfield. It's just like, come on, dude. You put your players in positions to succeed. Don't set them up to fail.
I agree. I think reason why I bring up the thing with Mooney is I've seen mocks where people are saying sign Curtis Samuel in a free agency for about 12 million. And I'm thinking Mooney would be a lot cheaper than that. And that's why I'm like, well, why not just sign or re-sign Mooney?
I'd say move on from Mooney and don't sign Samuel. I mean, there are enough receivers in this draft. Not to mention there are going to be some other free agent receivers who are, you know, like McCurk Hardman was like on 3 teams last year before he got, you know, like the Chiefs. He got back to the Chiefs and they caught a game-winning touchdown pass for the Super Bowl. You know, I mean, go figure. You know, so yeah, I think when you're talking your 3rd and 4th receiver, I'm not overthinking that one. You know, I'm not. I think they need to draft their second. Their receiver needs to me, their number 2 receiver needs to be someone that they draft that doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, Superman or Batman. He can just be Robin or Nightwing. I've said this a couple of times. I need him to be a number 2 with the upside of a 1, but you don't have to be the guy right away. Just come in and you know matriculate, you know, down the field and catch the ball and you know
Hank Stram.
Yeah, you know, and do your job. But in Tyler, I need you to move into being a slot receiver. You know, I need you to move up there. And Bayless, I don't know why you're still on the team. Go Volunteers. I'm a Vol for life, but you know, be a special teams demon if that's the case, if that's your lot in life. But I think you can find a 3rd and 4th receiver out there without having to overspend or feel that you need to retain someone who may have fallen out of favor in some people's eyes within Hallis Hall.
Before the next question, do you have anything to piggyback on that, Foster? Or
No,
Walt?
I was just going to say that there's so much talent at the wide receiver position. Even if you want to draft two wide receivers, TJ, if you have the capital to do it, there's probably 7 Moonies in the draft coming out this year. You know, with his measurables, speed, and size. Just go through the wide receivers. You'll find 5 or 6 of them for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, no doubt. I'm with you there, Foster. And there's a guy out of, I believe it's Western Kentucky, Malachi Corley.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, man, that as a dog, it's like a little bit of Jarvis Landry with a little more speed. You know, you get that guy in here. You know, maybe he becomes your third receiver. I mean, people didn't see Tank Dell doing what he did last year. You know, and guys in Houston probably did because he went to University of Houston, so they were probably watching him the whole time. But you know, that's a guy who showed out in the Senior Bowl and had a good week, and then winds up on the team. No one expected anything, and he ended up being one of the primary receivers. So, you know, unfortunately, and it sucks. And Mooney is crazy. You look back to his first 2 seasons. It's like, oh yeah, this guy can play. I forgot how good he was because that's how much of an enigma and how much he disappeared last year. And I don't know where his confidence is either.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I mean, think about the confidence issue when it comes to pros. You know, was it Chuck Knobloch couldn't throw from second base any longer? You know, Steve Sachs couldn't throw from second base any longer. Sometimes it's not the athleticism that's the issue at the pro level. It's where your confidence is. And Mooney, did he recover from dropping 2 times the ball against Cleveland? He fought the ball and lost.
Well, after his little thing there where he was on record and said some things, you guys all saw it when it happened. If you go back and look, I think there was 2 games in a row where they threw to him like they were going out of their way to throw to him, it seemed like. And I think in one game he was 2 or 3 for 8 and should have had at least 5 catches.
Yeah, it's tough.
So, It is.
Yeah, and I don't mean to make light of his situation. I mean, this is his career, this is his life, and so I apologize if it seems I'm making light of it. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And again, sometimes a fresh start. Maybe he needs to be somewhere else different so he can get past this bad situation. And maybe he didn't fit in Getsy's offense as much either. That's the thing too. It's like it's finding your place, and then it gets in your head, man. You might need to, maybe he goes somewhere like,
Kansas City,
Green
City.
Bay.
Well, I think of a team that might utilize him, but isn't necessarily a high profile team. Maybe someone like Indianapolis
or Chicago.
Or Chicago. No, but I'm just saying, you go to a team like Indianapolis, and now you're a different situation. Maybe Eberflus talks to somebody, and say, hey, he's a good kid, blah blah blah. He just needs another opportunity. He gets a chance in Indianapolis, and then he develops a relationship with Richardson, and then he finds his place and he's utilized. Because here's the thing too, he was asked to do a lot of things that were probably beyond where he should have been asked to do because he was the only other receiver we had. And so there were certain expectations placed on him that might have been more than he should have been. For all intents and purposes, he probably should have been a slot receiver in the pros. And if he focuses just on that, maybe he's that dude. He's that slot receiver that we're talking about. But he's been asked to bounce around, and now we don't, Claypool's not blocking for you. Let's put you out here. And then they're asking him to block a lot. Why are you asking the guy that's smaller than most of us on this panel here, asking him to block guys that are twice the size of anybody on this panel here? I'm Getsy. The more I think about it, man, the more I get pissed off about Getsy and where he puts a lot of these players. In situations where
I don't know about PJ. What are you, like 6'3"? PJ, you?
No, I'm not 6'3".
You're like 6'2". You're taller than me, aren't you?
No, I'm 6 feet. Walt 6'3", man.
Bro, when I met you at the Bears game, it was like bear hug. I was like swallowed up by you, dude. You were like taller than me.
That's because my muscles are bigger.
It's because he's 3 feet wide, dude.
I used to be 6'2". I must have just shrunken then. Guys, I want to get to a dear friend of the show. You guys know him. He's been on the show before. He was in chat tonight. I wanted to make sure he was still here. He might not be, but he sent me this really heartfelt text today. He said, "Would you please tell everyone tonight, on behalf of all Bear fans, I would like to say thanks to BCP for providing a vehicle for the fans to express their love, sadness, and thoughts for the Chicago Bears." So I want to say thank you, Vernon, in chat, a friend of our show who's been on there with us. That's very heartfelt. I wanted to make sure that I got that out before the end of the show. So thank you.
Good dude.
Appreciate that.
Vernon's a good guy, man.
Good man.
Yeah.
Good man.
What's the next question? We have a few more questions left for Glenn here, because we've kind of been ignoring chat the entire night. So this is nice to have them involved, asking Glenn questions.
Well, I got the question here, guys, but I do want to ask. I've been kind of thinking about this for a while. Again, you made a comment earlier in the show about the team learning how to win. I think we were about maybe 40 minutes ago. So it got me kind of thinking. Usually you win as a unit. I think we can all agree on that in terms of football, right? Mm-hmm. So, we're talking about we can keep, Braxton Jones. He had a bit of an off season. But you're looking at the quarterback situation, which is, in a sense, the head of the team, the face of the franchise, right? You want to remove that and go with a possible upgrade in terms of the passing department, right? We don't know yet. Anyone that says they do is, just talking out their rear.
To remove it. He just thinks they are going to remove it.
No, I'm not saying anyone in particular. I'm just saying, generally speaking, that's what people are saying. Is an upgrade over Justin Fields. He can do this, that, and the next thing.
Right.
But we also have to talk about the mental aspect behind it too. If you remove Justin Fields, right, who's been through the ringer, you're going to have those guys in the team that when Caleb walks in that locker room, they're going to say, "Oh, we gave up Justin for that guy," and that's going to affect play in ways that we don't talk about. It's not just all X's and O's.
Well, I get what you're saying, and there's merit to that. I would counter with saying when he walks into the locker room and when they come across him, it's not week one of the NFL. You have a whole training camp. You learn about this guy. This guy learns about you. Uh, People are going to always have doubts. They're always going to question you. You're the number one pick. You're the Heisman Trophy winner. People are going to look at you with scrutiny. Are you really that good? Are you really that guy? And yeah, there'll be some guys that are have some feelings. DJ Moore will be one of them about Justin if he's no longer there. But keep in mind too, these guys are pros, and at some point, it becomes about can this guy help us win? And if so, if that's the case, they'll move on from Justin. It's not some of these guys have already been on other teams. This is their second team or maybe even their third team. And at the end of the day, I'm reminded several times that Olin Kreutz, and I've heard it come out of his mouth where he has said to them, he's like, "Hey, look, would you rather it be you gone or him?" So at the end of the day, these guys are pros, and this is their job. And a lot of these guys, they have families, and so their concern is, can you help me win? I need to do my job so I can keep my job? And so it becomes less of a focus on being a fanboy for the guy that is your guy. And you can still be cool outside of football. Justin, wish you best success. But I think if Justin were to have stayed on the team, let's say that happens and they kept Justin and they drafted Caleb, then I think that divisiveness that you're referring to, that would play itself out more so, because then you're going to have a split room where you've got Justin guys and then Caleb guys, and that would be a lot more difficult. But if Justin's not on the team and they go to Caleb, I think if Caleb comes in and shows that he has ability, they'll be like, okay, we'll get this kid a shot. And that happens more in NFL than it doesn't.
No, logically, like you said, it makes sense that they would have that time in preseason and whatnot to get to know one another, so to speak. But it just
See if he
just
can
looking
play.
at it from see if you can play, of course. But you have to talk about those deep-seated seeds of doubt that may never go away. And
Can't worry yourself about that. Those guys have to get
it's-
over it, or they might find themselves on a different team. Yeah.
Yes, that's
I mean-
true. But we can't also ignore it too. It is possibly. I'm not saying that they're gonna not like Caleb Williams, right? I think Caleb Williams is a great talent. I personally don't feel he's a fit for the team, but we have to look at these kind of aspects too when we're looking at the player. In terms of what else does he bring to the team? Yes, he brings a talent, but do we have to deal with these other aspects that we're not? I don't really feel like I'm conveying it correctly. No, I don't care about that. There's been a lot of reports, and Greg Gabriel brought up in his show during the week that he's a very selfish player. I mean, that on top of everything else, is it going to combine in just a powder keg and explode? I mean, do you have? Are we going to?
That's one person's opinion. I mean, there are other reports, and there've been a lot of reports where Caleb is getting A++, all throughout. And here's a guy who has NIL money, and he's generous to a fault. Yeah, sure, he may have a bit of an ostentatious way about how he presents some of these things, but he's a young man. I mean, if you're a young person, you got the money, you tell me I'm a bad person because I'm spending the money that I have. Let's get the fuck out of here with that. I mean, not you. I'm just saying for people who come at you that way, it's like, please, dude, if you had the money, you would do the same thing. But how you carry yourself, how you handle and how you deal with people, that should be more what denotes who you are as a person as to what you're driving or what you're wearing. Shedeur Sanders got a lot of flack because he's very showy in what he has, but the guy's a dog on the field and he plays well and he plays all out, and that's what really matters. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's just some people, I'll put it this way, haters are going to hate, and people who aren't haters, they won't hate. So when it comes to Justin or Caleb, and Caleb as a person, that's people's perspective. And we won't really know. And by we, I don't necessarily mean us. I'm talking the Bear players and Hallis Hall. They won't really know until you really get them in your building, until you go through adverse situations. That's when you find out, is your person that you have a front runner, or is he someone that can stay the course and someone that can get you through it? And to your point, Walt, that's where Justin has exceeded expectations, because he didn't throw anybody under the bus over the last 2.5, 3 seasons. He fought through adversity. He's come out on the other side of it. The teammates respect him for that. Those are things that are earned. And to this point, Caleb hasn't earned that with the Bears yet, but he hasn't been given the opportunity yet. So to castigate him before he's given the opportunity is not fair. And so if we're going to be fair about it, let the young man, if he is the person that the Bears select, let him earn, let him go through this, and let him be and see how that goes before we prejudge him. That's very difficult to prejudge someone in a negative fashion, just as much as it's difficult to put all the trappings on them before they prove themselves as well. It works both ways.
Do you think that polls will put Caleb through the same rigorous test that he put Jalen Carter and Darnell Wright in last year? I mean, I know they're different positions, but similar to where it really tests that fortitude. The one that where Wright passed with flying colors, but Jalen gave up, I believe was their word.
I don't see why not. I mean, that's why wouldn't you? This is the first pick overall. Hell, if it did with the 10th pick or the 9th pick initially, and someone that was purported to be a top pick, I don't see why you wouldn't do it with the most important position in all of professional sports.
I just wanted to say that I don't want to prejudge Caleb Williams in any way. Like I said, if they do draft him, I'm still going to support the team. But all I'm trying to convey is it's something that we need to think about and keep in the back of our minds, and just in terms of evaluation, I have to look ahead a bit too much, a little bit, and at the person itself, and what are the outcomes, both physically, mentally, on the team when I'm making this evaluation as a general manager. That's how I would look at it personally.
Yeah, I mean, you do. I think weighing too much on how the team feels about Justin is too much of a focus that is negligible to some extent, because there are times where you're unable to sign a player and they leave through free agency, and that's going to affect the team, and so you still have to get over that. And so NFL is a transitional sport. I mean, it's a lot of attrition happens for various reasons. I think. However, that being said, I to your point, I think if I'm not to your point, let me know. Justin has that locker room for a reason, and that's the devil that we know, and it's a lot more comfortable in the sense of what you have character-wise, and you don't have to worry about that. You just need to fix what's on the field, and part of that being fixed is better coaching, better talent. Those things seem to be empirical, tangible things. The stuff that comes with a person's character, those are intangibles. Those are things that you don't find out until the person comes into your building. You go through things, and so we don't know. And when we look at what Caleb did, some of his reactions as a collegian seem to be a bit immature. But okay, he's 19 years old. I'm not gonna. He was a bit pouty and impetuous in terms of the loss to UCLA. They want to talk to the media and kind of didn't shake hands or whatever. Cuddle with my dog. Oh, okay, man. Like, you know what? You were 18, 19, 20, whatever the age is. You get to the pros, you're gonna have to get beyond that real quick. But I'm not gonna say just because that's how you were, that means that's how you're gonna always be. I think that's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely come back from that and change your perspective a bit, like you're saying.
Sure.
Can I kind of throw like another wrench into this? When did our window on this defense just begin?
I'm sorry, once again.
Did the window on our defense just begin this past season? What is the Super Bowl window right now for this team? Because you have to take all this into account when you're looking at keeping Justin or getting another quarterback.
I'd say 5 to 7 years comfortably. I think you have a few guys who are going to be in their second contract and their window's still open. I mean, you have a very young team. Montez Sweat's probably one of your older primary players, and he's still relatively young. And then some guys can play a little bit longer, than you expect. And so maybe someone like Aaron Donald. I mean, you for much as he's gone through as an interior defensive lineman, he's still getting after it. So you don't, some of that depends on the health of some of your players, but outside of that, you have a pretty young team right now. And if you trade down like I want us to do, you can continue having a young, viable team. and so that kind of feeds on itself. So yeah, I say the window's conservatively at this point 5 to 7 years. The secondary is extremely young and talented. Your linebackers are probably, I forgot about them. They're probably in the middle. They're probably a little bit older because they're in their late 20s. But again, that's where drafting and having more draft capital, you can start bringing in guys. I like this kid out of North Carolina. What's his last name? I like him. I just forgot his name. I apologize. But, there's some pretty good linebackers that are going to be there in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round because linebackers are devalued just like running backs are these days. You got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who's a really good linebacker, who's versatile, going to be there out of Clemson. Exactly. And his running mate, I think it's Barrett or something. There's another good linebacker. His running mate out of Clemson is really good too.
Hey, like the kid out of Michigan.
Colson, you're talking about?
Yeah,
I like him too. I mean, he can get a little more weight to him, but right now, as a a guy who I can bring in on 3rd down, someone who can just chase and run, I can limit what his responsibilities are because I've got some of the other talent there. Yeah, I mean, there's talent out there. So yeah, they're going to have to at some point start addressing some depth with linebackers and some youth there. Secondary is the youngest, strongest unit right now. The interior of the defensive line is young and growing. If you get that edge rusher, there's some more youth there. So I think the window is conservatively 5 to 7 years, I'd say.
Were you talking about Cedric Gray from North Carolina?
Yes, thank you. Cedric Gray from North Carolina. Thank you. Yeah, I really like that guy. I really do. I hope he's wrapped up.
What do you think of James Williamson moving to linebacker? The safety from Miami, I think his name is James Williams.
James Williams.
Yeah, James Williams.
We'll see. I mean, it's sometimes being a linebacker. If he's a nickel linebacker and you use him more so on passing downs, I feel better about it. If it's a linebacker and you talk about, he's an every down linebacker. How well does he get off blocks? That's a different thing coming from safety to being a linebacker. Being able to track the ball and sift through, get past blocks, be able to get off of a block if so engaged. That's a whole different level of meeting, somebody that's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", coming at you at 320, or a ball of a cannonball of 6'3", 320 coming at you, or 330 coming at you. Try to disengage. That's a whole different thing than when you're in a safety and you're dealing with maybe a wide receiver that doesn't really want to block you.
Well, I know because Swifty even says it here in the chat that they had him playing linebacker at the Senior Bowl. So that's why I was asking that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think athletically, I get it, and I think that's one of those things where you get a guy like that, and you have him switching position and learning another position at the NFL level. You're going to have to coach him along, which means that you don't put him in positions where he gets his ass whooped. So right. You don't put him there on 1st and 2nd down on the run downs. Maybe you use him on 2nd and long, 3rd down situations, and then right. He becomes a little bit better at learning the linebacking position. So yeah, I think the physicality is there, and I get it. If he's a nickel linebacker, I feel a little bit better about that because now I've got that ability as a secondary guy where he can maybe play in space a little bit better than a more traditional linebacker, and his athleticism, he can go side to side better, or he sees passing lanes, or he understands zone a little bit more, or space a little bit better, then I'm pumped. But if I'm asking him to be that guy that's like Roquan in 1st and 2nd down, he might be getting his ass whooped.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, to go on linebackers, there's an interesting character. I don't know if he declared out of Old Dominion, was Jason Henderson. I know he led the league in tackles per game at like 14. So definitely somebody who was all over the field.
And that's one of those things. It's tough when they're playing not the best competition per se, or the top line competition. But that doesn't mean you can't play. And that's one of those things again where the scouting really comes in, and you're maybe even the combine or a pro day or something where maybe you see a little something and you say, okay, I can see him here, and give him a shot. Or maybe he comes in as an undrafted free agent, and then he gets an opportunity. So yeah, that's tough. Sometimes the stats look really good, but then they start playing and you're like, yeah, no, he was just
he's definitely more a project than anything else.
Yeah.
And I did hear what you said, that you want us to trade down. So
that's what I want. I really, that's if you're at, early on, I'm talking about what I think the Bears are going to do and how to wrap my mind around that and how that can be successful, or how that can look to be successful. But as far as what I would want to do, I'm all for trading down, because again, as I said before, it's a great opportunity to set yourself up for the next 20 years, really.
I just want you guys to know,
draft wealth.
Glynn is my brother from another mother. I just want you guys to understand that.
Yeah, you definitely got to draft well, but having more picks gives you a little bit of margin for error. And
wait, he didn't have anything great to say about Chase Young though. How do you say? Where does that truth come from, PJ?
But him and I don't have the same father.
You don't have the same father, but it's another mother.
That was such a great answer. Oh man. Love you guys. You guys are gonna make this show. It's just so quick-witted. That was so perfectly said.
I'm just saying, man. I mean, we ain't twins, you know what I'm saying? We're not twins.
Oh man, I feel like we don't want to give. How much longer you guys want to go? You want to go 2 hours here? We got 4 more minutes left. You guys want to go longer?
Let's do it. If for a penny, for a pound, right?
All right, just making sure you're okay.
As long as Glenn,
we don't want to wear you out, Glenn.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. We have another question for Glenn then, from chat.
Sure, let's find a good one.
Absolutely.
Go.
Glenn, if Poles makes his decision after the combine, what is the advantage of keeping quiet until draft day?
Yeah, the only advantage of keeping quiet till draft day is that you're going to acquire Hall. And I think I have to double check everybody, but I believe if you wait until draft day, you're able to ask for picks into the 2026 draft. And that would be the advantage of waiting until draft day, because let's say it's the Washington Commanders, or even it's maybe Atlanta, whoever wants to give you a first round pick in 2026, you may have to wait until draft day in order to ask for any picks into that draft class. That would disagree. Be the advantage.
Reason why I disagree, look at last year, because we got 2023 picks, 2024 picks, and 2025 picks.
Okay, well then
I just thought about that.
Then maybe there isn't an advantage in that regard. I know if you're going to trade Justin, the sooner you do it, probably the better, because the teams that want him may lessen the longer you wait. And if you're trading Justin, you may not be able to get as much for him, especially after the combine. If some guys look better, after some pro days, if some guys start to look better, a guy like JJ McCarthy might start moving up the draft boards, and someone like him moving up the draft boards makes it a bit problematic. I'm not saying the Falcons want him at 8, or maybe the Falcons trade down and get him at 14, 15, or 16, or maybe he doesn't get past the Broncos at I think they're drafting at 12 or 13, somewhere around there. So that can affect where Justin goes. I mean, right now, you can take the Raiders off the board because Getsy's there. He's probably not going to go to the Raiders. I don't know if he goes to Pittsburgh. Arthur Smith is the OC. He didn't really see fit as the head coach to draft Justin. He took Kyle Pitts instead. So I don't know if he'd be pumped for Justin. Atlanta, it's a possibility. It looks really good. Hometown kid, all that jazz. Athletically, it aligns with the players that are there. The OC there, probably we get Justin under center, more play action, which could help out Justin. Anywhere else, Justin's probably a backup. I don't know if Justin, how Justin would feel about that. He may not have much of a choice, obviously. But again, if he's being drafted if he's being traded as a backup, you're not getting as much. Maybe that second round pick now becomes a third round pick, or a third and a fifth or something like that. So he's going to make some decision probably after the combine, but I would say well before the draft. And if I'm not saying it's a pattern. He did that last year. I think early March is when he made the move. I think you'll probably see something very similar to that. But the combine gives all these guys an opportunity not just see these guys in shorts per se, get more accurate measurables, but really to interview them and see what they're like and get a chance to speak to a lot of these players face to face.
So in a perfect world for you,
Mhm.
what would you have the Bears do in the first 3 rounds in a mock draft?
The way they stand now without any trades, you're saying?
No, I mean, what would you? I mean, if it was up to you, what would you have the Bears do? Whether it's trade down, get this pick, and potentially get this player for the first 3 rounds, what would you do?
Right. Well, again, it really depends on a trade partner. Let's just say right now the trade partners are either Washington or Atlanta. I don't think New England really is going to trade.
Wait, can I throw a wrench in that really quick? Because
Sure.
I've been wanting to ask you this all night. What if? Don't pull me, guys. Here we go. Nothing to do with Tyson Bagent. Okay. What if the Cowboys want to offer us 3 first-round picks in the next 3 years because Dak Prescott is in his final year of his contract this upcoming season. They're going to want the rookie behind him. Let's just, for sake of shits and giggles, they want to give us 3 first-round picks in the next 3 years.
Should have pulled you.
They're drafting so far down low. Who's your quarterback?
They want the first pick, so they're gonna.
We're keeping Justin's. What you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, so they would trade the pick to us, or we would trade the pick to them. I mean, they would draft said quarterback, put him behind Dak for a year, and then part with Dak, and then insert the next quarterback. But
Who's
we get
back up now. Trey Lance.
Yeah, Trey Lance is the backup now. That's why I was kind of shaking my head. I was like, yeah, Trey Lance is
okay. Never mind.
Already there. Yeah, that's why I was kind of like. But you said shits and giggles, so I was like, okay, maybe he knows Trey Lance is there, and he's ignoring.
He's a third. He's a third round.
You can't let him have too many giggles because he'll keep going.
Well, it doesn't mean Trey Lance is around though.
Trey Lance is their third draft. I mean, quarterback. He's not even a second. He's a third.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Thank you.
Is he behind Cooper Rush?
Yes.
Really?
Yep.
So,
he is.
do you think would that be worth it? Because they might be in the teens or the 20s next year, but maybe the year after that, once the new quarterback is actually starting, they're back in the 10s.
I'm just curious. Why'd you pick the Cowboys? Just because of Dak?
Thank you, Glynn. Thank you.
Well, no, I was actually thinking of a team that was in a later round that might want a quarterback, like in the later part of the first round here, that might be willing to give up. And it came to me, Jerry Jones. Sorry, what?
I would actually, going with that premise, I would actually target a team like maybe Seattle, because Geno is not a great quarterback, and he's 34, 35, somewhere around there. And you have a connection with Shane Waldron to where, maybe speaking with people in that decision-making situation, there's a bit of an in there, so to speak, and you have a bit of not that you have a relationship, but Shane certainly has a relationship, and he knows some people in there. And so someone like Seattle makes sense because they may want to have someone that, I actually thought Seattle might take Richardson last year and just have him play behind Geno and learn behind Geno. So in a couple of years, Richardson can take over. So with that thought, maybe Seattle could be a team like that. Maybe Seattle could be a team where you trade Justin as well, but then again, Justin would be the backup, but they're looking forward to, once Geno's contract's done, Justin steps in, so on and so forth. But yeah, I think that the later in the round, or the further down you go, I think the least likely that those scenarios happen. I think for the Bears with the number 1 pick, you're probably not going to go past 12 or 13. It's just tough because the further down you are, the more you have to offer. And I don't know if those teams are in that situation with that they see that they need even offer that because they're that far down because they're good.
That's why the Cowboys came to mind. I'll just finish really quick because they're one of those teams that might not be sure of their quarterback, and they are so far down they could offer a shitload of picks for that pick. That's all.
I could see the Raiders as well as the Broncos both offering up 3 first rounders for the number 1 overall. Huh?
Not the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders, because they still have some holes. They got a lot of things they got to still figure out another receiver, some offensive line issues, another pass rusher. They put themselves behind another cornerback. I mean, they would put themselves behind a little bit to have to offer 3 first-round picks.
Right.
Denver.
Back to the scenario.
Back to the scenario. I'd say if you see the Washington or New England, and we're keeping Justin and you trade down, I'm stopping there because that gives me an opportunity to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
But what if?
What if?
If it's Atlanta, I mean, I'm trading past Marvin Harrison Jr. I might still be in a situation where I can get a Dunze or Brock Bowers. And with Atlanta, now I have back-to-back picks. I don't have anybody in between me. So I can really kind of do what I want to do, or I can maybe combine those picks and maybe move back up if I want to maybe try and get someone that I see, or move down even more. So, or by having the 8th pick, if I have the 8th and 9th pick, now I can take that 9th pick and I can move a little bit further down because the 8th pick kind of, substantiates where the 9th pick was. So those give me more opportunities to where I can acquire several picks in the first 100, like I keep saying. That's first through the 3rd round. Now, if the players that I'm looking for at that point, or the positions I'm looking for to draft, definitely edge rusher, wide receiver, center, and possibly a free safety, but I would actually say another wide receiver before free safety. I think you can get a free safety, a frontline type free safety, even high in the 4th round. And by having subsequent picks, so I may miss on Cameron Kitchens from Miami. I may miss on Newbin from Minnesota, but I might be able to get Kalen Bullock from USC. And now I got a guy who's 6'3", about he's a bit sinewy. He's about 195, 200-ish. But I can utilize him and envision him the way that the Ravens have utilized Kyle Hamilton. You get that length, someone who can be a problem for tight ends, because he's got that length that could be get in the way of things and some of the physicality. And then it's just someone that I can put in the middle of the field where it's difficult to throw over them, or get beyond them. Someone who can be that last line of defense, who can get in the way and, tip the ball away, all those kind of things. Having a tall free safety, I like guys who may be 6'3", 6'4", who are playing deep like that, because they're a problem. They can be a real problem, especially with these receivers nowadays who are 6'3", 6'4", getting downfield. It'd be very difficult, especially in the system that Eberflus runs, for more times than not. A lot of times you're in a cover too. You're not going to get beat deep, and that guy gets literally, or you can slide him down if you're doing a dime, have somebody else play safety, put him in a dime. Now treat him like you did with Urlacher, where you've got someone long in the middle, and it's difficult to pass over them, but they can also go laterally as well as they can go deep and forward. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility. I like Bullock's possibility in that. So I'd like to address, back to your point, in the first 3 rounds or so, I'm getting that edge rusher that we need, a complementary edge rusher, complementary wide receiver. And these are guys that are going to play basically right away. They're whether or not I'm not saying they're playing 100% of the snaps, but they're getting 65, 70% of the snaps on the go. And center is definitely something I would rather draft than have to get a free agent center. I want to have my own center that can be in place for the next 10 years, 7 to 10 years.
But you're not leaving this draft, in your scenario, without Marvin Harrison Jr.
Well, that's only if I make a trade with Washington and New England. Because outside of that, he's not getting past 4. As long as the Cardinals are there at 4, he's not getting past. Unless New England takes him at 3, he's not getting past the Cardinals at 4. And there's no way I think I can convince the Cardinals to move off of 4, because they're like, no, you're trying to get Marvin Harrison. I'm not going to let you do that. Because just as much as we're talking about it in Arizona, they're saying, oh my God, Kyler with Marvin Harrison Jr. and the young man from Stanford who did pretty well last year, him growing into his role. Trey McBride at tight end down there. And I don't whether or not they keep Hollywood, we'll see what happens. But and they've got the kid out of Purdue who's short but really fast, and his name's escaping me right now. But
Drew Brees.
I'm sorry, say again.
I said Drew Brees.
Darnell Washington.
No. The wide receiver. He's out of Purdue.
Bell.
No. He's a short guy, but he's like fast as hell, and he's a matchup nightmare. His name escaped me right now. I apologize, everybody, but I'm saying they've got some talent. But if they get someone like Marvin Harrison, that transforms Arizona's offense tremendously.
Yeah.
And so they're targeting him just as much as the Bear fans would like to have him. They're like, you're not going to get him unless you trade down with Washington or New England, and they may not make that trade because they may not want to have to give up the capital, and they can just feel like, I'll trade, like Washington would be like, okay, we can't get Caleb, but we like Jaden Daniels because we want a dual threat quarterback that can do similar things. And then New England's like, that's great because, Drake May fits our culture and what we're used to and the kind of quarterback that we'd like to build around, because that's what we've had here traditionally when we've had our success over the last 20 plus years. And so why make a trade with the Bears? And the Bears are like, okay.
So what does the hiring of Cliff Kingsbury say to you for Washington if it's not to get Caleb?
Bring your offense, and if we get a quarterback that can do what your offense, that can be utilized your offense, and again, that can be Jaden Daniels. You don't have to get Caleb. Jaden Daniels is just as dangerous. He's taller. His where he's throwing, and not that, but Jaden actually plays. He plays to playing in structure more than Caleb does. Caleb willfully gets out of structure a lot more often. And Jaden doesn't play a hero ball as much as Caleb does. And you have 3 good wide receivers already, or at least 2 good wide receivers, contractually that you don't have to worry about in Dotson and McLaurin. So, maybe in the second round, because you didn't trade away your draft capital, you get a good tight end. So now you got someone in the middle of the field to help the young man going forward. So, or you get a better offensive lineman. So yeah. And then New England's like, we're good because we were looking at Drake May anyway. And then we don't have to trade away any capital and we can build around him. In fact, we can get Jones out of here now and just keep Zappy back here and get rid of Jones and maybe get a 4th round or 5th round pick for him.
I don't see New England moving up at all. They're going to sit there and do whatever the hell happens. Whatever falls in their lap, they're going to be happy with.
I agree with you.
It's kind of, I wanted to bring this up earlier too, is, the Bears might have their eye on Jaden Daniels or Drake May, and they're using the Caleb Williams decoy card. No.
Thank you, Glenn.
No.
I had a scenario actually where, and I literally plotted this where we did the trade with Washington, and then I, being Poles, called up the Cardinals and said, I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. here because I wasn't getting offers for any of the other quarterbacks. Drake May, whoever 2 was going to be. It's not, Marvin.
So you're saying the Bears take Marvin at 1?
I convinced the Cardinals to trade up from 4 to 2 because I told them I was taking Marvin Harrison Jr. because nobody wanted to make a deal with me for whatever quarterback was not taken first or whatever, whoever. But, it's like, because I swear to God, man, in San Francisco, they convinced Pace that they were taking Trubisky, man, and that's how they made that trade.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to
things
talk
like
about
that happen, man. I'm just saying.
Well, if I'm the Cardinals, probably for the same reason why Washington and New England won't trade up per se. Well, I was going to say there are other receivers that Arizona can take. I mean, they can take Neighbors at 4 and be okay with that, or they could trade down and take Odunze at 8. If say for example Arizona moves up, if MJH is gone, because the Bears did take him, then if I'm Arizona, I probably see if I can make a trade with Atlanta to move up to maybe take Jaden Daniels at 4, or if there's another, quarterback, whatever the case. I think I did something, a mock trade where I something similar like that happened. I think I had the Bears trade down to 3, I think, with New England, and then Arizona was like, okay, you took MHG or Marvin Harrison Jr., MHJ, and so we'll trade with Atlanta, and they can take Jaden Daniels, and then we'll pick up Odunze or whatever other wide receiver down there. The thing is, Arizona has a lot of picks. I think Arizona has like 11 or 12 picks already. 13, right? So they don't need a lot of draft capital per se. They may start packaging picks and move around the draft board a lot.
That's why I'd really like to work with them somehow.
Dr. Truth,
not going after Caleb.
I have to disagree a little bit with Dr. Truth. He's not too slight. He's sinewy, which is different than being slight. To me, slight is more like Bryce Young last year or currently. Jaden Daniels took some big hits in the SEC. Just go back and watch some of the highlights, and he withstood those. And we've seen a person who's 6'3", about 195. Doesn't mean he's going to stay 6'3", 195. Yeah. He'll probably put on 5 pounds before the season begins, and he can probably go up to 210 and play at 6'3", 210 his whole career. So he's not brittle. You know, and as far as offense at LSU being pretty basic, were you saying that when Joe Burrow was there lighting it up? I mean, no, he had 2 receivers. He threw, both receivers had over 1,000 yards, and Brian Thomas, he had 17 touchdowns. Brian Thomas Jr. had 17 touchdowns, and Neighbors, who I think had double-digit touchdowns as well, close to, but both receivers over 1,000 yards. So Jaden Daniels won the Heisman for a reason. Keep in mind, he won the Heisman in the same draft class of Drake May, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix. All these guys had great seasons, but Jaden Daniels was the one that won the Heisman and playing in the SEC. So, you know, let's give a little credence and not just completely dismiss someone just because their build may not be, you know, something that is, you know, out of a mold per se.
He kind of reminds me of like a bigger, taller version of Bryce Young, to be honest. His throwing mechanics and everything are very similar to Bryce Young from my own eyeballs.
Yeah,
he's just a bigger dude.
He's taller, you know. He's not as, I think his shoulders are a little more broad. I think he can definitely, you know, he can definitely just, you know, take more weight.
I mean, from a throwing mechanics perspective, he has the kind of has the same throwing mechanics, the planting, the flick of the wrist, all that stuff. He reminds me of just a taller, better version of what Bryce Young could have been.
Yeah, I mean that's highly possible, no doubt. And I mean, we've seen Lamar wasn't quite as big as he is now when he first came into the league. And for those of you who remember Randall Cunningham, to me, when I look at Jaden Daniels, to me, I'm like, you're like Randall Cunningham to me.
God, I love Randall Cunningham.
He was at UNLV, you know, very slight, you know, like you said, slight of build or sinewy. Because to me, the sinewy guys, they're a lot more durable than you realize. You know, you look at Devontae, the receiver for the Eagles, Devontae Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy hasn't had a serious injury, and he is, as you would say, slight, but I think he's sinewy, and he takes those hits and he bounces off. You know, he bounces back up. It's something about, you know, the elasticity of their sinews that allow them to absorb some of that. You know, the abuse that they're taking, they absorb it, and it's kind of like it's dispersed a little bit better. Now you may see it in thicker guys, you know, guys that have a bigger build, because there's a different way that the absorption happens. But sinewy guys, you know, like look at Lamar. Most of Lamar's injuries have come when he was throwing the ball, not because he was getting hit when he was running. You know, same thing with Randall Cunningham. Look at that, the great play Randall had against, was it Monday night against the Giants, where he gets hit, Chip Banks. Basically, I got him dead right. Looks up and it's a freaking touchdown, because he's like a rubber band. He's bendy. You know, that sinew allows for that bendability there, that elasticity. And so when you're getting hit, it's the absorption rate is different. You know, it disperses a little bit better. So yeah, I wouldn't be so worried about Jaden Daniels surviving in NFL. Plus, you know, part of being playing football on offense is not getting hit. You know, and when you're running, you can see it coming a little bit better, and you can get the hell out the way a little bit better, especially in today's NFL. You know, it's conducive for guys to slide in it. That's unless you're Justin Fields, it's conducive for you to slide and you don't take the hits like other guys did in the past. Yes, I wish I was sinewy.
Why do you say no to any other quarterback other than Caleb?
For the Bears?
Yes.
Because it doesn't make sense for them to do it for anybody other than that person. Drake may, none of these guys are, everybody's got their issues. Okay, no, there's no perfect player.
Right.
For you to come off the number one pick, that guy has to be more substantial than the one that you're targeting. And nothing that I've seen from Drake May makes me think he's more substantial. I'm not knocking him. I think he's a poor man's Justin Herbert in a lot of ways. But there are times where I'm not seeing him necessarily be the difference maker that you want the number one pick to be. And so why do I go to someone who I can see being more of a difference maker? Even with Jaden Daniels, there's more athleticism there. There's a little more height and what have you. But again, I'm not completely sold on him, but I'm not sold against him either. It's more like, let me see how good you are without the talent around you being really good. As much as Caleb gets knocked for not winning a lot of games last year and being 2-9 against teams that were, I think, ranked teams or some of the better teams he played, let's not dismiss how bad that defense was. Let's not dismiss how bad the offensive line was. Let's not dismiss that he didn't have a Biletnikoff Award winner like he did the year before to throw to. Those things are contextual things we need to factor in as well. Jay Cutler didn't have anybody at freaking Vanderbilt, but he was still a first-round pick because he had nothing at Vanderbilt, but you saw what he could do because he was able to be that. He was so good that he stood up, and I think with Caleb, we've seen it not just last year. We didn't just see it when he won the Heisman. You saw when he burst onto the scene in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. So he's been doing this for a bit. Now, I will say, and again, because as much as I pull this way, I'm going to pull that way too. Caleb has been in the same system for 3 years too, so that's helped him out. So what is he going to be like when he's in a less pass-friendly system that you have, and then you're not in college any longer where you can run around and those guys get open a little bit better? Caleb's really accurate when he's throwing off schedule. Well, yeah, because he's running around long enough that the other guys in the secondary can't cover the other guys that are running around. So he's throwing to a guy. He threw him open. Like, did he throw him open, or was the guy already running open from the defender who lost him because he's been chasing him for like 4 seconds or 5 seconds? So yeah, you got to kind of see where that fits and plays and what have you. That being said, we've seen quarterbacks be taken number one overall from that system in Baker and Kyler, and it's been mixed results, but those guys are still playing. And we saw a better Baker this year, and Kyler, when he came back, played a lot better too. So the jury's still out on those guys. I think Caleb Williams, and people always talk so many times about, you can't take a quarterback from this school because those guys never did well, or a quarterback from that system never did anything. We thought that about Patrick Mahomes. The one from Texas Tech ever did anything, and that system in Texas Tech, that the run and shoot type kind of system, or however you want to classify it, didn't pan out. Those players had a cup of water in the pros at best. Cliff Kingsbury being one of those players. So he played in that system as well. And Patrick Mahomes, and I'll be honest, with Patrick Mahomes, I remember reading about him. I didn't really look into much. I was like, oh, okay, another guy threw 5,000 yards in Texas Tech, whatever. Missed me with that one.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know who this Mahomes guy is. Oops. But I wasn't paid to do my due diligence at that point. I was just a fan, but again, now Patrick Mahomes, he may be the only player that ever come out of Texas Tech that did something, but you can't hold Texas Tech against him any more than you could hold the system that he learned. I went to Tennessee. Tennessee was, when I was there, Tennessee was known as wide receiver U.
Willie
Gault, Carl Pickens, Tim McGee, Alvin Harper. All these guys had Stanley Morgan. All these guys had great careers in the NFL, or if not all of them, most of them did. Who the hell was throwing on the ball? Couldn't tell you. I can tell you when I was there, but none of those guys went to pros. And Heath Schuler didn't last in the pros at all. But Tennessee, you don't have that image of Tennessee not being a quarterback school that can produce a quarterback because Peyton stood out so much.
Right.
Before Brady, was it Elvis Gerback? Maybe Harbaugh. You're talking about Michigan quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Michigan quarterbacks have a better, understand. They looked about better because of Brady. And Brady couldn't even start. He was battling Drew Henson.
Right.
So it's all negligible. LSU didn't have anybody before Joe Burrow. So Alabama didn't have anybody. Well, they had Joe Namath, but outside of that,
Ohio State
doesn't school before Stroud.
CJ Stroud.
Hey, Justin Fields, come on, man.
He hasn't made the playoffs, so
CJ Stroud. Yeah, right. That's a great point. Foster. So you to hold, where someone was or the system that they were in against them, you have to kind of let it play out. Yeah.
I want to get to what Vizzo Joe's saying here. He says, Glynn, thank you so much for your time and breakdowns. You the man. Please come back after draft. And we're hoping that he might
Thanks,
come
Vizzo.
back before the draft. We're hoping that he might.
Put the pressure on people, man.
Shorty trying to get you to come stay in his guest room.
Got a guest from here, and I'm in Florida, bro. Just come on
See,
down.
told you.
He's in Florida. You might have a better chance against my paneling. You don't know the story.
My best friend lives
you know
in
the
Florida,
story.
so you never know.
You might remember the paneling with the Casey thing with the dead people. Sorry.
I'll just say I'm near Sarasota, so hit me up anytime if you're in that. If you have a best friend in that area.
How close is that to Tampa? I have no idea.
I'm a half an hour from Tampa.
Oh, there you go.
Fair enough. We'll talk.
There you have it.
I was
told his wife, "Don't ever book us to Tampa ever."
Oh man, seriously, this has been the chat is blowing up tonight. They have so many questions for you still that we still have to get to. Cliff's asking, is it worth signing center Connor Williams in free agency, even though he won't be available the first half of the year?
Yeah,
I'm going to go to the bathroom while you answer that question.
Yeah, Connor's been one that I've been, of the centers in free agency, the one that I was inclined to take, but the injury, it's a little difficult on that one, and how much he's asking for it. I don't know. I mean, I'm more inclined, and this is probably going to piss a lot of people off, to look at drafting a center and maybe bring Lucas Patrick back a little bit until that center is ready to play. But again, that's if the Bears draft Caleb, and that's if the Bears get, like I mentioned before, if they get, Drew Lock or someone like that to kind of come in. You need that veteran presence at both spots, at least one or the other, if not both spots, I think really early on. And if you're saving money, so to speak, or you don't want to get caught overspending for a free agent that may not be ready, most of the season, and you don't know quite how that injury is going to play out. It's a little iffy, and that's tough for Connor to be in that situation as a free agent too, because he's going to be having to deal with that injury question and how well he'll be, so on and so forth. But that's why I'm more inclined to I'd rather draft a guy and sign someone else.
And who's your top 3 rated centers?
I mean, Jackson, Powers Johnson, he's a beast. He got bigger. He was about 320 something. He actually put on a few more. He's like 330 something now.
Right.
He manhandles people. You lose a little bit of athletic burst a little bit at times. He's not super quick, so to speak, but he does so much in the area that he's in, and he can really anchor well against pass rushers, and he knows what he's doing, and he's just so hard to get around. He really made some people look bad at the Senior Bowl. Aside from him, Cedric Van Pran out of Georgia and Zach Frazier out of West Virginia. Those are my top 3 guys.
Okay.
And if we got to go into the fourth to get one, Tanner what's the guy's Bortolini?
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'll be candid with you. My in-depth in terms of scouting hasn't quite gotten to some of the centers that later down. I'm pretty much, those are the 3 where I'm at. I'll look at it more, but I've been focusing. There's so many other players, receivers, edge rushers.
It's Tanner Bortolini, and who's the guy you talk about, PJ, from
Duke?
Was it you with Arkansas? Bo Leamer?
From Duke? You talking about Barton?
Adam Mason. Somebody was talking about.
Yeah, we talked about Barton earlier.
Yeah, Barton to me, he can play center, but at this point, I want to get someone who is a center. I don't want someone who's vacillated between the interior. If he's my swing interior offensive lineman, great, but I want a guy who's a center to be a center at this point.
I totally agree. There's 3 or 4 free agents besides bringing back either, I don't know, Feeney's a free agent too, but Patrick, I believe that we got to draft one and sign one either way. We got to have. We cannot with this young line, and then if Caleb's even whatever the deal
especially
is,
if it's Caleb. Yeah, especially if it's Caleb. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Here's another good question from Vernon, who I read his text earlier. Mr. Morgan, I love your thought process and agree with it. However, our Bears team has shown that they do not think in this manner. What is the culture of the Bears? Your thoughts. And this comes from a man, by the way. So Vernon and I go back a while. He got me a job working for the Bears. I think I told you the story the last time we were on. If I haven't, I'll just recap it. We were running off all the stats for every quarter and handing them out to everyone in the press box, all the sports media.
Sure.
We had tickets to go to every game. Obviously, we got to go on the field. We got to go into the locker room. We got to go to Platteville for training camp. We stayed in the dorms with them. We ate our meals with them. I walked into the locker room and got kicked out by Dave Wanstead because of Vernon. So his question here is, I wanted to make sure I got that in for you, because he's been around the culture like I have as well. And, I'm sure you have a lot more insight to that than we do. So what is your actual thought on the culture of the Bears? Do you think they've corrected this? Is Kevin Warren really the answer? Is Mr. McCaskey just counting the beans now and approving this or that? Or does Kevin Warren really have the team? What's the culture like?
I think it's in transition right now. And I think transition with the arrow pointing up. I'm not just saying that as a Bears fan. The Bears aren't paying anything for me. So I don't, there's no win for me by saying this. But I think culture doesn't just change overnight. It's going to take a little bit of time. And sometimes it takes something that you didn't see unexpectedly happening that might be like lightning striking in a way that changes it a little more viscerally than otherwise. Sometimes it's a slow change. Sometimes it can be something that happens. But I think regardless, I see things that are changing. I think Poles, his presence here is shown that. I think hiring someone like Kevin Warren, moving on from Ted like they did, and hiring someone like Kevin Warren, thinking outside the box in terms of they no longer trying to be held down by the Chicago in terms of Soldier Field and the Park District and whatever those shenanigans, or however they tied themselves into that situation to get the Space Dome that they have built there. And again, we don't know. It looks like not Naperville, was the Arlington Heights thing may or may not happen. It may be something in Chicago. It's still in transition, but the fact that they're thinking outside the box, they're thinking beyond just the football aspect of the Bears, they're thinking about other things. And I know that lines their pockets, and I get it, but it also provides things for here Chicago as a venue. How many times have we wished that we could have? Like, no reason why we shouldn't be able to host a Super Bowl. No reason why we shouldn't be able to host a NCAA tournament. Especially now in college football. I was thinking basketball, but even with college football now going to the tournament, Chicago would be a great venue. I mean, the Big Ten is situated here. So yeah, I think that they're thinking more than as myopically as they used to, and as stuck in, this is what has always worked. I think they're starting to figure that there's things that they can do to maximize. As far as we're concerned with the product on the field with the Bears, again, I think hiring Poles speaks to finding someone that has a better plan. I think they made mistakes with Pace, and I think they learned from that a little bit. I think they bought into his charm and smile, and he probably reminded them of a grandson or some family member that they once had. I think going Poles was going in a different direction, but one based off of not just youth, but representation in some ways. And if you look at the Bears, the composition of what you see now in the coaching staff, there are more people of color in the coaching staff. They recently just hired a woman to be the running backs coach. And so those are things that traditionally the Bears did not do. Growing up here as a Bears fan, getting Vince Evans was a bit of a shock at the time, but the investment in him and the development of him didn't really happen. And then it took a long time before you saw another quarterback, let alone getting Lovie Smith, although he wasn't the first, second, or third choice. It was someone that they did hire, and they stuck with Lovie for a long time. And Lovie, they had some good years with him. So there are little things, and I mention all this because those are cultural significant changes that we saw. I mean, you go back to Brian's song, and having locker rooms being shared by a black person and a white person was a bit of a cultural shift back then, as crazy as that may seem now. But the other things that were problematic in the Bears organization, culturally speaking, financially, sometimes the Bears cared too much about the money they were making and the money that they weren't spending so they could keep lining their pockets. And I think we're stuck on that old narrative. But if you look at it, it's like, no, the Bears, they spend money, and they spent money on players. They may not have always spent wisely, but they spent money. Getting Khalil Mack was something that we didn't necessarily do before. You trade away someone to get 2 picks. Now, it was more short-sighted, but there was a bit of a cultural shift. And so I think the Bears have realized at times we need to make a change. Sometimes in the past, they would stick with it past the point that they needed to. Hiring Kevin Warren, again, that's a big move. You're convincing the guy who was the commissioner of the Big Ten to come over and to run your organization.
Yeah,
they're the first team to have in the NFL to have a black coach, a black general manager, and a black team president now,
and quarterback. So yeah, I mean, as I say all those things, it's not that culture is something that has to be defined by racial standards or what have you, but those are obvious things that you can see that are big changes, but also the fiscal direction that the team is going in, and where Kevin Warren wants them to go into, and Kevin Warren saying, wait, no, this deal is not a good deal right now. The Arlington Heights, nope, let's back this up. And not just going into it because that's what they decided to do and sticking with that. So I think some of the shift I'm seeing is a more fluidity of thought within the Bears brass, whether it's with the composition of front office people or whether it's with the decisions that people are making that are born from being not just strong and just going into something, but being more pragmatic. And Poles, to me, identifies a pragmatic thought. He pretty much has a reason. There's a methodical reason for why he's doing what he's doing. I don't know how good he is as a poker player, but I don't know if I want to play poker against him because the guy he's implacable. He doesn't give you much at all. So I think those are some shifts. Now, how that plays out, we'll see, yet to be seen. But I think they're there. And I think if we look at it with an open mind as opposed to going into it with the negative narrative that has always been there, I think we'll see them more. If you're always looking for negative stuff, you can find it. It's a little more harder to discern where the positivity may lay, but it doesn't mean it is not existing. You just have to be open to seeing it and then go from there. So I think it's there. I think it's incremental, but I think it's pointing upwards.
I think that is so well said. That it goes into the last thing.
Interesting that you were talking about Cole.
Oh, there he goes. I didn't pull him. I promise.
He having some internet problems.
He's been having some issues tonight. But I mean, what you said is it kind of like pertains into what I've been going through in my current I started a new job, and it's very demanding, and it's critical. And what you said just kind of pertains into my own life too. So I 100% agree. And this team is, I think, it's taking that. It's to what you were saying too. It is being progressive, and it's moving forward, and it's incremental. We're seeing it happen. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that this team is going to stop finally being the blind squirrel that finds the nut.
Right.
They're going to be the team that is finally like ahead of. They're the one burying the nut for the other idiots that can't find. And I see that with this management, with Kevin Warren down to Poles, and Poles before Warren, because they always do things bass backwards.
And that's traditional bass backwards from the Bears, yes.
Yes,
but
100%.
but now that things are kind of in place, let's see if this collective can move together forward. And then Poles and Warren seem to be more in sync than not, as well as Ian Cummings, as well as at this point, at least with Eberflus, there's some continuity.
I don't mean to correct you because you are the man, but Ian Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about.
I'm sorry, what did I say? Cummings. I'm sorry, Cunningham. Thank you.
I'm like,
no.
Should I correct him? He's.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the mic moment all night long. I was like,
dude, when you're wrong, you're wrong. So please tell me when I'm wrong so I can be right. I don't need to keep.
I may not always be right, but I'm never wrong.
The day that Ian Cummings goes and gets the new job, and I did that as a joke. The day that Ian Cummings goes and becomes a general manager is the day that the Bears succeed, right? Because we've never had an assistant general manager, and once he's on his way, once he becomes a general manager of another team, that puts us the next peg up because now we're pumping out GMs now.
Yeah, I think I almost want to say there was a guy that left the Bears and went to Arizona. I think he became like their general manager for a while. I can't remember who it is, but to your point, so the greater point, but yeah, it's not something that we traditionally do. We're not a developing front office people for the rest of the NFL.
You mean
like
recently?
How you say again?
Recently, somebody left.
No, this was like I think
back
maybe
before we had a GM again.
Yeah. This is like maybe like in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, it was, what's his name? It was wasn't it the dude that we hired as head coach? No, it was
no. I think a front office person that he left here. I think he was like an assistant or whatever, left here. I think he was a general manager for the Cardinals for a bit. I think he was African American too. I just can't remember his name. I have to go back. I just can't remember. I apologize.
I know Campbell. That wasn't it Campbell that left us and went to the Raiders as an assistant GM? Is it Campbell or
him? I don't remember. This guy, if you said the name, I'd probably be like, yeah, but off the top of my head, I'm not.
That goes to show you we're going on 3 hours here, huh?
No, this could be midday, and I still would be struggling with it. I'm not going to front. Sometimes the names are there, and then sometimes I see the face, I don't know the name. So in the lineup, I got him. His name, I'm like, I don't know.
That's why you always have to say, "Nice to meet you, Glynn," and then you go, "Nice to meet you, Glynn." Like whenever you meet somebody for the first time, shake their hand twice and say their name twice because you'll never remember it, but you'll remember the face every time. You know what I mean?
Who is the GM of the Raiders right now? He came from the Bears. Black guy.
That might be what it is.
Don't give me the line. If I don't know, I'm not going to pretend that I know. I do not recall his name.
I know exactly who you guys are thinking of. Chet, come on, help us out here. Doug.
Wait, PJ, the GM of the Raiders now?
Uh-huh.
The GM of the Raiders now, isn't it Tom Telesco?
Tom Telesco.
Yeah, he's definitely
his assistant.
It is.
No, he got named general manager of the Raiders on the 23rd of January.
Yeah, Doug Van Dorn. You all have computers in front of you.
This is true, but that would involve hitting buttons and sifting
all right.
through.
Well, thanks, Doug. Thanks for putting me to work.
Champ Kelly is the assistant general manager.
What's his name?
Champ Kelly.
Champ Kelly.
He came from the Bears.
Yes, sir. That's his name.
Yeah.
But that being said, I look at the Bears staff now, and as far as the coaching staff, and I'm like, I see a lot of compensatory picks right there.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was trying to make the case for, jokingly, to keep Eddie Jackson this year because, as we talked about on the last show, pretty much every player in a contract year plays their best. And Eddie Jackson was in his final contract year, like he was in the contract year going into his third contract. So it was almost like, well, let's just keep him for $16 million. Because he'll have 8 interceptions and, he'll return 3 for touchdowns and he'll have 16 picks. Maybe. And then he'll get signed by another team for a big contract and boom, another compensatory pick.
Yeah,
but is it worth $16 million?
or the 16 million you can spend somewhere else, so you don't have to worry about it. and Eddie, God
Touche.
bless you. Yeah,
Touche. Yeah.
appreciate you. God bless you. Have a good life.
Appreciate what you did there, Eddie.
Yep.
It's like not paying Edwards this year, man.
Appreciate what you did in the contract year, Eddie. It was awesome. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, have you heard or can you disclose how much Jalen Johnson is asking for and what the Bears is offering?
No, I don't know what he's asking for, numerically speaking, the exact number, but he wants to be the highest. I mean, as we all know, he wants to be the highest paid cornerback. I don't know that he'll get that because the Bears will be like, you've done that. Although you've been really good in coverage as far as that playmaking ability and picking off the passes, you've only done that kind of for 1 year.
Right.
There's still outside chance that they may franchise tag him. I don't believe that sends the best message, especially if you trade Justin the same year you franchise him, in terms of how you're treating your own players, so to speak. I know the Bears didn't draft. I know this iteration of the front office didn't draft Justin, but he's been a Bear,
Right.
So he can come from somewhere else. So I like to think you have enough money, especially after you relieve yourselves of Cody Whitehair's contract and Eddie's contract, that you can pay Jalen what he's worth, and you don't have to worry about it. You're good going forward, and that sends a good message. And he's pretty much, since Eddie's gone, he pretty much is the face and the leader of that secondary unit. Brisker's probably right in the line behind him, but I would say, just out of in terms of tenure, I would say Jalen is that guy. And then he's the only person who's been a Pro Bowler on that secondary. So.
I mean, it is kind of interesting. Your general manager and your coach and everyone's preaching continuity and culture, and then they would go and pull something like that too.
Right.
Bit hypocritical.
Right. It would be.
And I think that's what I was trying to bring up before when we were talking about, possibly moving on from Justin and locker room effects and things like that.
But it's not hypocritical with Justin because.
Well, no. I mean, not that, but the fact that the team is out here preaching, well, we got to keep continuity together and culture, and then you have these guys that go through these events. Right. And it's not like Justin's contract is up and we're just letting him go via free agency. That's one thing. That's completely different. He can walk away on his own. This is, you're actually physically moving this guy because you're like, well, there's new toys over here and I want this now.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to convince me, but
no,
it's like we might have to wrap our minds around what this looks like if Justin's not here and be okay with that. And how best can the Bears go about doing that and have success sooner than later, because again, it's a lot of pressure on the kid. It's going to be a lot of pressure on that young man.
In polls, we
there definitely is, but yeah. So what I'm saying is, if they go the Caleb Williams route and they trade Justin Fields, it's fine. I'll still buy tickets to the Bears games and I'll go and have fun and do all that stuff. But at the same time, that's going to reverberate a little bit, whether we want it to or not, in the way free agents view our team and the way draft picks view our teams.
Possibly. If we're losing, if we're winning, winning solves a lot of problems, right? Well, I mean, that's
yes and no. You'll have those players, but you'll have other players be like, well, I'm not going there because look what happened with this guy. It's just human nature. We can't overstep that. That's all I'm saying.
I think with Justin, why it may not sit as harshly is because in the NFL, players realize this. Justin wasn't who Poles drafted.
I don't get behind that line.
Well,
it doesn't matter to me.
But it does matter in the sense that I come into a situation and I have to deal with what you left me, and what you left me is okay, but I can see something that might be better. So do I not owe it to the organization and to my own career and everyone else's career to upgrade? Because that's what we're constantly doing in NFL. You're constantly upgrading. You're constantly, it's a very transitional profession. It's constant. If you're not upgrading, if you're not changing, then you're stagnant. If you're stagnant, you're dying. And so I think players realize, particularly at that specific position, that if that guy isn't someone you selected, sticking with him, it's understandable if you don't. It'd be different if it's Aaron Rodgers, or some Hall of Fame guy. Think about how difficult it was when Jimmy Johnson took over the Dolphins and Marino was there, and he's a bit of an aging guy, and that became a little contentious at times. Or when Belichick took over the Patriots and he still had Bledsoe there, and those were guys who had success. Both those guys have been to Super Bowls. Both those guys were, first round picks and had been to various Pro Bowls. Justin hasn't done any of those things yet. And so I think players, the reality of that, they realize that if moving on from Justin, especially if Caleb comes in and does well, they'll be okay with that. It's not so much that we can't get beyond it, because these guys see people move all the time. DJ Moore, how many different quarterbacks did DJ Moore see when he was in Carolina?
True.
Mm-hmm.
Did it stop him from being productive? No. Yeah, he's got great synergy now, and for him to lose Justin would suck, but he's been through that where he's lost a quarterback damn near every year, or he's a different quarterback thrown to him. At the end of the day, these guys still have to be pros, and that's part of being a pro athlete, regardless of the sport, especially team sports. The guys come and go all the time. So I think it's a little different for us because we don't necessarily deal with that kind of movement, that type of attrition, like they do in professional sports. But that's more the rule than the exception for those guys. And so I think they, maybe as a rookie they may not get that, especially if they come up with certain other rookies. And it's like, oh, we came up together. But most everybody else is like, man, that's the nature of the beast. So in other sports, a little different. In baseball, the attrition may not be as much because some of those guys come up through the minors together. So, maybe there's a little more connectivity there. But with football, most football players' careers are like what, 3.5, 4 years. So they got guys are constantly coming and going, man.
Another thing that's kind of been, rubbing me the wrong way is, a certain radio host ended up getting the Caleb Williams jersey custom made, and he went on to another podcast, and they said, well, what was the turning point? This is when we got the number 1 pick. So the thing is, you're fine with you're fine sticking with Justin. You have 9, and whatever the second pick is, right? So let's say Carolina did okay, and we didn't get the number 1 pick, but now we have this number 1 pick. Why not just use that to, like you said, build around your quarterback? If he's okay here, and the only difference is that number 1 pick, why not use it to better the team as a whole?
You're preaching to the choir, Walt. And it's by the same token, I also say, like, if you can get excited about Justin in Atlanta or someplace else like Pittsburgh, why can't you just make what makes you excited about him being in those spaces, add that here, add those pieces here, so we can be excited about it. I mean, it's not going to make sense until it makes sense, and even then, you may not like what happens. I mean, you said you'll still be a Bears fan, and I get it, and I respect it, and you'll still go and all that stuff. Look, if Justin leaves, I'm going to be in my feelings for a little bit. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to be looking side at, like, all right, you better make this work now.
Make room for me. I'll be there with you.
I'm like, okay, what's your plan? How are you going to execute it? I
It's
hope
almost
it works out for you.
It's almost like we go through this cycle where we have a quarterback and he does okay, or whatever, and then he kind of falters off, and we go through this repeat thing.
We've had some shitty quarterbacks, Walt.
And we've had some bad quarterbacks.
No.
You have to excuse Walt, please, Glynn.
We haven't had quarterbacks.
We have a younger guy here.
Almost been 50 damn years, man. Sorry.
He's like 25 years old.
Yeah. Sorry, bro.
I wish I was 25 years old.
Yeah, I've lived through, and most of us here probably have lived through the Bob Avellini days and the Bobby Douglas days and the Mike Phipps days and the real short Vince Evans days. And Vince Evans, sometimes like, dude, throw the ball a little bit less hard from 1 to 5 yards. They'll kill my hands, and stop throwing so high that my ribs were exposed. And Vince had his issues too. The Jim McMahon days, Mike Tomczak. I mean, and then it really got bad, after those guys. So there's been really the fact that Cutler and McMahon, and for that 1 year, Kramer, and to some degree you throw in Jim Miller, and love Jim, good buddy, friend. I mean, you're talking 1 year type kind of things that we have hanging our hats on for the last 50 effing years. So yeah, it's been tough. And Justin, not the best opportunity to succeed in. So, going forward, we don't know. And if it's Caleb, then hopefully there's enough in place here that this kid can come in and do something and be something. But, hey, there's a reason why we only have one quarterback in the Hall of Fame. We've got the most Hall of Fame players and most players in the Hall of Fame, and it's Johnny Lujack, whatever his name is. It's Sid Luckman, I guess. Yeah, it's the only guy that's the Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, we got more running back.
This is all George Halas's fault. And I'm serious. No, it is. Because we've always had great defensive players and great running backs from day one. Because that was his strategy. Because the quarterback wasn't as developed. And as the quarterbacks developed, in 39, he happened to fall into just getting the pick. That was the guy. Because that guy Sid Luckman was a great quarterback for a decade. Seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But after that, I mean, it was the same pattern again. I mean, we really haven't had a continual solid quarterback, minus what you just said, Glynn, with McMahon and that bit of Steve Miller or Jim Miller and that year Kramer and Cutler. And, minus that, it's really been since Jack Concannon when they won their championship in 63. It's been 60 years. Let's minus a whole, 5-7 years at the most out of the last 60 where we haven't had a quarterback. And nobody could disagree with that. I'm just saying it out there because that's what it's been. Realistically.
Are you going to the combine, Glynn?
No, I won't. I will not be attending this year. No.
I was supposed to be
in spirit. I'll be watching on TV like everybody else.
He's just saying that because he thought you guys were setting him up for. Hey, well, if you're going to be there, let's hook up.
No, I'm not. Hey, my name's not Foster.
Dude, if I didn't have, I had like a fire at my house, Glynn, and then all this other crap happened because I was going to the Senior Bowl and I was going to go to the combine because the combine's not far, but
okay, right, it's not at all.
I wanted to go to all that stuff, guys. You knew that. I was supposed to go with Swifty, dude. We talked about it on the phone. Shit happens. In this case, it didn't.
If Fields gets traded, when will it happen? Probably early March at the latest, I think. Somewhere, I'd say no more than a week to 10 days after the
in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, the start of the league year is what, March the 15th?
The date I don't have, but I think it's like mid-March.
But that's the first day you can actually trade somebody, right?
I believe that's when you're able to do that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, it's March 13th, 15th, something like that. I think it's like mid-March.
I think it's the 13th, yeah. That's the new league year.
Yeah. And so I don't expect no trades. Well, you can't be no trades before then, so.
Yeah, but that's why you go to the combine and you talk to everybody, you get a feel for it, and we'll see what happens.
You get to find out
somebody wows polls with a trade offer because they just got to have Caleb Williams
until
Caleb Williams be the New England Patriots.
Caleb Williams comes in at 5'11".
And I know, guys, I get it, and the field support is awesome, and he won't know because he's tuned out of everything right now, but it's I think you might really need to wrap our minds around the fact that the Bears will probably draft Caleb Williams.
I'm good either way.
I think we'll all just be happy when this is finally over.
In polls we trust, Glenn. In polls we trust.
Man, polls got this. Whatever it is.
Polls got this.
I do love the fact that we do have the right system in order with the way this works. Like other teams, with a real president, a real general manager that nobody's got their hands in. I hope. I mean, I'm sure there's to an extent, but if they're going to let Poles run with what he's doing, I just see success.
A real general manager that treats draft picks like gold bars and not like Pace, where he was just giving them away. They were just pennies. Let's just trade this pick and let's just we'll move up 5 times to get this player.
Now, Fields said he was going over to Europe for vacation here in the next week or so. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go head over there with him before we can hang out a little bit, and I can reminisce on the good times. You want to go, Glenn?
That's probably why he took himself off his social media. He was worried about you.
He mentioned Milan. It's not bad. I've right now. I think my first, not first. I've been to England before, but my jaunt I want right now is somewhere in Italy. I want to go somewhere and go bon pomeriggio, buongiorno. I just want to do that and talk with my hands and just say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to people.
Vino, sì, vino mas.
Bagno, donde bagno? So yeah. But yeah. I think that's a smart thing for him to do, is to get away from it.
I think that's a great way to end this show. It's 3 hours on the dot right now. And I could tell we're kind of winding this down. We don't want to wear you out, Glenn. We want you to come back as much as possible, because you have blown up chat tonight. Everyone has just been absorbed in what you have said, all of us included. We just kind of been sitting here mesmerized by some of your takes are excellent. And they're well thought out. And
I thought that was just a glazed look for me droning on, but thank you.
It's taking it in, man. We're taking.
What?
Wow, what happened there? I said it's just taking it in, Glenn. Glenn, taking it in, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, Glenn, we seriously appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us again. We'd love to have you on again. Please, let's make that happen. And we should probably get to the chat really quick before we wrap this up. But guys, you guys are awesome. You guys have been blowing this up tonight. It's great to see you again. Sports Chicago style, Triple R. Steve Grunwald.
Mr. Mayhem. GCA. Cliff Victoria.
Steve Grunwald has been catching us usually not in live chat, but in listening to it afterwards. And he's been making it a point to be here with us live recently. So we appreciate that, Steve. Thank you.
Yes, Steve. Thank you. Doug Van Dorn.
GCA, great to see you again. It's been a little bit.
Band 69. I saw King Buka in here.
Yeah, King Buka World.
Spalding,
9.
Victoria Spalding Johnson Burford. Is that someone that you know, Glenn? Because we've never seen her before.
Man. Yeah, I don't know. Tony Moy.
Either way, thank you for joining us, Victoria.
Absolutely.
Dr. True.
Vizo
Joe.
Leo Factor hanging out with us again. Let's not forget about Doug Van Dorn, of course. Like I'm sure you already said. Cliff Victoria. You guys are our staples. We love you guys.
Leonidas
hanging out again. Antmus hanging out again.
Leonidas, this is Sparta.
There's been a lot of new names and old names in here in chat tonight. It's been great seeing all the old names, and it's been great having all the new names as well. Tony Moy, great to see you again, hanging out with us.
How is Mark Kazak doing? I haven't seen him in a while.
Mark Kazak's been working. He's been doing DoorDash, so he hasn't been in the late night shows.
Cool.
But Vizo Joe is another newcomer. Thanks for joining us tonight, Vizo. It's great to see you and here tonight with us. We hope that you had a good time and you come back again.
Ant Moss.
Yeah, Ant Moss.
Mr. Unrealized Prophet. 3 freaking hours. Glenn is awesome.
Dr. Truth.
You must know that.
No. I think our Mr. Rogers' word for the day was sinewy. So
sinewy. That's a word that I learned today. So thank you.
Won't you be my neighbor?
All right, fellas. I appreciate you, man.
Glenn, we appreciate you.
Around.
We appreciate you.
Stay safe.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. Everyone in chat, we love you guys. We will see you next Thursday at 9 p.m. at our normally scheduled time, because we made this a special show just to have Glenn on, because he kept bugging us. Like, fine, we'll move it to a Wednesday. So
hang on after the show, Glenn. Hang on after the show.
Give us 2 minutes after the show. We're going to do a 1, 2, 3 Bear, 1, 2, 3 Bears, and we'll end this. Ready? 1, 2, 3 Bears.
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 Go Hawks.